Nobody's in the Christmas spirit. I don't see anybody. You got red. That's Christmas? It's greenish, sort of. Okay, okay. And brown. You know, they last forever because I took it out the other day because I wrap it up and put it away and with the Christmas stuff and, you know, so they last forever because you never wear it. Hello, Cole. We can start now. We're all protected. Traffic is horrendous, isn't it? Oh, God.
Oh my God.
So Valerie, I got you as a no. Right. Hello, hello, hello.
What's up, buddy?
Coming back. One minute.
Madam Mayor, as we prepare to begin, I just wanted to restate for those on the dais and for those who wish to make a public comment to please speak into the microphone. When we don't speak into the microphone, then especially the ones here on the dais will not pick up the ambient sound. So please direct your voice into the microphone so that everybody can hear, including those on Zoom.
Please take your mask off.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. This is our regular commission meeting, December 7th at 7 o'clock. This is our regular commission meeting at 7 o'clock. Shantae, would you please call the roll?
Mayor O'Happen,
Present.
Vice Mayor Hammelberg,
Present.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy,
I'm here.
Commissioner Samara.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioner Samaria, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and justice for all.
Are there any additions or deletions or withdrawals to the agenda?
I have a couple of things, Jenny, if you don't mind.
Go ahead,
Can
Commissioner.
you hear me okay? Okay. We have a conversation tonight about swales. It's the second or third time we're having this conversation. It's a really big topic and I don't want it to be rushed. And I think it may be a bigger topic than we want to keep on the agenda tonight. But more importantly, we have two items after it, short-term rentals and the Land Development Code Sector C, that I feel are of a more immediate need. They're impacting the village on a regular basis right now. And I think they need to be addressed more urgently. So I would like to move short-term rentals and the Sector C conversation up above the swale conversation. And I'd also like to make sure we have to have Mario's conversation about his salary tonight because we indicated in September that would happen tonight. So I'd like to move those three up ahead of the swales.
Which numbers are you bringing forward?
13A, I'm sorry, 13C is Mario's salary conversation, and then the short-term rentals and the Sector C, let me pull them up.
So Commissioner, just to make sure we have it, item 13B as in boy, discussion of the short-term vacation rentals, item 13C, village manager salary evaluation, and item 14A, land development code sector C zoning, that comes from planning and zoning. You'd like to move those ahead of item 13A.
14B is in boy, it should be an extremely quick conversation, but maybe we could decide later to move that one up. We could knock that out and get it out of the way, but those other topics I think need to be addressed quickly.
Can we move them up around number 11?
Yeah, with
I mean,
14 B's moved up already.
13B and 14A should be able to be moved up even further.
We have to do the ordinance first, I believe, and the public comment with the ordinance goes with it. So we have to get that out of the way, but then we can move it up there.
And
if we want to.
14B, if I'm correct, is done up in front anyway, to where we elect the mayor. That should,
That's not what the topic is. Read the topic, it's something else. So at any rate, I just think all of those things we can get done if we move the swale conversation down below them.
Okay, you want to move 13A behind.
It might be easier to move 13
Yeah.
down below 14.
Yes.
Make it number 15, put it down there, and then we'll plow through everything and hopefully we'll get to that as well.
Right.
Maybe that's what I should say is make that
makes more
conversation number
sense.
15. Okay.
Okay, any other additions, deletions, changes? Okay, all in favor of moving 13A to 15, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. I'd like to present Mario.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regards to the presentations, at the last commission meeting, the commission asked that staff go and take a look at seeing what we can do with regards to doing a traffic enforcement and operational plan on 6th Avenue. Chief, along with our Public Works Director, Albert Dominguez, have been working diligently on it. And they do have an update to be able to provide to the commission. Chief, if you can, here at the, just make sure that you speak into the mic.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. First and foremost, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight.
Would you
I
talk
I will
louder
be
and-
extremely brief since the plan is basically laid out in front of you. At the request of the manager, we decided to conduct a traffic study on enforcement, what's needed out there for enforcement, and what can assist us to alleviate some of the concerns that we have on Sixth Avenue. Obviously, one of the major concerns is both pedestrian and vehicular traffic. I teamed up with the Public Works Director and with code enforcement and put together a holistic plan that encompasses basically 3 phases. Phase 1, which began in October, is traffic enforcement. For those who've had the opportunity to be out there on Sixth Avenue, we're basically on a daily basis doing radar patrolling on Sixth Avenue, and we have numerous officers that are radar certified, so they're able to measure speeds and obviously, address the issues that are occurring out. Additionally, we have roving patrols to make sure there's a high visibility presence, but not ignoring the other issues that we have in our village, which is public safety, high visibility, and ensuring the safety of our residents. We have a lot of residents that walk, jog, go out with their dogs and their children. It's important they see that police visibility all the time. So it's a plan that's also very flexible. When I met with the Public Works Director, one of the things we looked at is what is DOT and other agencies, what are they going to be able to do to assist us? So the Public Works Director met with DOT and they discussed signage, putting a signage out on Sixth Avenue, which is one of the things I asked. And I also looked at what Bal Harbour currently has, which is reflective paint that outlines the speed limit when you enter the village or exit on Sixth Avenue. So we had a discussion with them and they were agreeable to that, and they were agreeable to looking at different other measures for traffic calming. As I'm talking right here, and we're still in the planning stages and working with them. They've committed to working with the village to implement things that not only calm traffic, but ensure the safety of pedestrians and vehicular traffic. I am not, some of you have known me for a long time. I am not one to put a lot of stats and numbers because they change and they could change for numerous reasons. But I'll give you an overview of what we're looking at in comparison to accidents on Sixth Avenue. In 2019, we had 14 accidents on Sixth Avenue. In 2020, we had 15 accidents on Sixth Avenue. And in 2021, we've had 16 so far. Overall, throughout the village, we've had 2019, 39, 2020, 27, and 2021, 35. So if we put all that together and you kind of do an analysis of an average, you're looking at about 30 accidents a year throughout the village. As I've spoken to you many, many times, it's a balancing act. We only have so many officers at one time on duty. So not only do we provide high visibility for traffic enforcement, but we also provide it for public safety. Our village hasn't had a robbery in 4 years. We haven't had any rapes, any murders, or any capital crimes out here. And for that, I thank the residents because you are our eyes and ears. At the same time, I also commend the officers. As you know, we are currently overall between full-time, part-time, and reserves, a little bit, close to 50, maybe a little bit over. And we're anticipating in December, a couple of troopers are retiring and coming over to work with us. So we continue to move forward. We continue to look at ideas and go outside the box. One of the things is I've been writing with code enforcement on 6th Avenue to identify those line of sight issues. We've identified several homes. I instructed the code enforcement officers to speak to the residents and try to, get them to comply with our current code standards, so we can avoid these line of sight accidents that can be tragic. Some of these on 118 and 119, some of the line of sight is horrific. I mean, horrific. So we are addressing that. I know there was a concern that, the lack of cooperation from DOT. When I go into a situation, I try to go in with a positive light, and I like to turn things to our advantage or my advantage if I'm representing the village. The same thing was said about Griffin, and that we wouldn't be able to get anything from the county. We were able to get the stop signs that are currently, I think, on 8 and 118, the four-way stop signs. We got the temporary permission for the humps and the additional stop signs. So I go in there, with a positive frame of mind, and I don't stop till I accomplish what was set out to be accomplished. And that's the type of spirit that I have in me right now. I know how important this is. Several residents have expressed to me, we've heard the chatter before, but nothing is on a permanent basis. Well, we call this the holiday plan because we are in the holiday, and that's when it began. But this is something that's going to be ongoing and long-term. It's not a short-term plan. And it's been very, very effective. You could see some of the behaviors that have changed since we've been out there with the radars. I'm hoping to get signs that specifically tell people this is a radar monitored zone. So when they come in here and you have the paint that says 30 miles an hour or whatever that speed is, and you're going and you get caught with the radar, you know that you were informed. They're also looking at giving us placing the speed measurement signs, which is great because the one on 121 is now is dated. So that's going to be extremely helpful. And I look for feedback from the community, from the leadership that I have before me, and from the residents that continuously attend meetings and work with the administration. So for that, I always thank you, because without you, I wouldn't be here. And without you, I couldn't, hold my policemen accountable for the thing, or the department's policemen accountable for the things they do. So at this time, is there anything you want to add?
Albert, if you can just give us a recap of your meeting with DOT.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable commissioners and Madam Mayor. I was greeted really nicely by the Department of Transportation. I had worked there 10 years, so they're real familiar. We kind of talk the same language. And while I was there, I explained to them our concern about speeding and for safety for that street. And they were, they're engineers, so they think engineering, they think logic, study, look what we're going to do. So they were willing to go ahead and engage some consultants. They're going to be engaging traffic consultants to go ahead and do, in particularly, 3 different studies. Obviously, one of them is a speed limit, a speed analysis study, in order to determine and confirm the speeding does occur and to what degree it actually occurs and through which hours mostly it occurs. So they do a complete little study that says exactly what is the existing condition.
Albert, I'm sorry, I have a question about that, because I was reading that. What does that entail, the analysis? How do they do the speed analysis?
Okay, so what they do is they can go ahead and put road tubes. They put road tubes across the road, and the road tubes are spaced at a certain distance. So they can do actually, depending on when this one triggers and this one triggers, they know how quick, how much those cars. They can actually do classification as well. They put three road tubes at certain distances, and they can tell what kind of cars, whether they're single axle trucks, multi-axle trucks, motorcycles, or passenger vehicles. So they do that with road tubes, okay? And they do them for 3 days. They do them during non-holiday hours. They can do a 7-day study and so forth. So they went ahead and did that. They confirmed that it's very easily that it's going to validate the need for the traffic marking. So those traffic marking speed limit signs, they're engineers. They didn't say, hey, you got it, we're going to give it to you. They told me the chances are 90% or higher that that's going to be implemented right away. They also stated that the reason why it could take a little, as long as it says here, which is 6 to 12 months, is because they based on their contracts, they got consultants that do the study, and then they got contractors that do the work. This is a very small job, and so they'll get hit really hard with a mobilization charge for doing, just to come out here and do that job alone. It could be $4,500, when if they package it up with a couple of other jobs in the area, it could be as low as $1,200. So they're frugal in that sense, and that's why it was 6 to 12 months, or else they would probably get it done faster. The other study that they determined they were going to do was a traffic control warrant for 119th. We were looking to somehow for them to go ahead and look to see if either a signal or a four-way stop, which would aid in people having to slow down in the middle of that long stretch, and they were agreeable to perform that study as well. That study will go ahead and also look at the no U-turn sign that it was suggested that could be important as well. The DOT does not maintain their traffic signal system. They actually give that to the county, and the county actually performs all of the maintenance and work and operations, and to a certain degree also the monitoring of traffic signals and traffic control devices. So for the what they call a speed feedback sign, which is what the chief stated, it's a radar sign that lets you know, hey, you're speeding, guys, you're 45 and a 30, slow down. That those two signs are managed and operated and maintained by the county. So they would go ahead, they committed to going ahead and contacting the county, having them check out to see if the signs have already been obsolete, if they're time to be changed, or the northern one to be repaired. So they've also committed to take a look at that as well. So it was a fruitful meeting. They were glad to, they were glad to help. I wasn't too pleased with the time frames, but yeah, it's an elephant, and we're only like a kangaroo trying to push an elephant. Their DOT's big. Anyway, thank you again for your ears.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
May we ask some questions of the chief and Albert?
Go ahead, Commissioner Kennedy.
Okay, so first of all, Chief, thank you very much for putting the report together. Am I feeding back somewhere? Is that you? Okay. I like everything I see in here. It all makes perfect sense, and I'm not surprised that FDOT would come back and say they need to do studies. And some of these solutions that are possible are very long-term, so they don't solve anything for us immediately, but the chief is working on some things that are more immediate for us. So I see that there's a balance in there. First, Chief, do you have everything you need to get more people radar certified? I see that you put in here that there's been some challenges because of COVID, I'm guessing is what you were saying, getting certifications, and you're trying to get an in-house trainer, is that correct?
Yes, due to the issues that have arise with COVID, um, these are courses that are completely hands-on. So you're out there in the field, wherever they take you. So you're gonna do two different types of radar guns plus one that's the ones that you have in the vehicle. So it takes time. It's very hands-on, and because of the COVID concerns, these classes have not been going on.
Okay. Is
Um,
it,
I'm
are
working-
officers who are not certified not able to write speeding tickets? Do they have to be certified to write them?
Yes, okay, let me take a step back. To write them for the usage of the radar, you have to be certified.
But an
Um,
officer who was out there who was not using a gun could observe someone speeding and pull them over and write a ticket.
yes, if one of the tools that are used is the pacing of the vehicles. And that's something that's been used in court before. But the recommendation and what we teach our officers is to use the radar.
Because that's what holds up in court most often if
Absolutely.
someone
And-
were to
and, you
challenge the
know,
ticket.
We have, and I'm not gonna get into the number for specific reasons, but we give you a gap. So if, I'm gonna make up a
Understood.
number. If it's
Understood.
10 miles an hour,
Yeah.
we probably won't, we
You
give
don't
you
stop
that
me for
gap.
11.
Right.
I get it. I understand.
There's a lot of things that go into being able to gauge the speed of something, sound, the angle that you're looking at something. So just standing at the corner saying, oh, that person's going faster than that person, that's correct. But are they going near the speed
I
limit? to
understand.
begin-
I just wanted to
So
understand.
that
if
becomes very
officers- I wanted to understand if officers
suggestive.
had to be using a gun in order to give someone a ticket. So an officer can write a speeding ticket without the use of a gun.
correct. They usually pace either they're right behind you and they can see what their vehicle is traveling at.
So here's my biggest comment. 'Cause I like everything that's in here. It's great. But what I'm not seeing is Biscayne Park reclaiming its status as the place where speeders don't want to go. So before I moved here, I think it's 6 years this month, actually. For 14 years, I lived in North Miami. I lived literally 10 blocks outside of Biscayne Park. And when I moved there on 131st Street, neighbors told me, I moved there from South Beach, don't go through Biscayne Park. They'll get you for speeding. It's a speed trap there. Don't do it. And truly, I went out of my way to go around Biscayne Park because I didn't even want to go down 6th Avenue. Everybody knew the don't even think about speeding thing in Biscayne Park was for real. And I don't feel like we have that reputation anymore. And I'd like to hear you speak on that. Is something that you find valuable? Is it something that we should be reclaiming? Because I feel like there's not the perception that this municipality is serious about its speeding. And it used to be the case that people spoke openly, don't speed through Biscayne Park or you will get a ticket. And now I think that reputation is gone.
So
And they did it with signs and other things,
No,
but
yeah,
everyone knew it.
the way I look at it is slightly different. We definitely, and the numbers are there. I've had a chance to put them out. We do enforce throughout the village our traffic laws. I'm not of the professional thinking of people to be fearful to travel through Biscayne Park because I think that's, in my opinion, this is only my opinion, a little bit of a negative connotation where I rather people say, hey, listen, I'm going to drive through Biscayne Park, but I'm going to do it in a safe and lawful manner. And that's my ultimate goal where people are driving through our streets, especially 6th Avenue. And when I tell you the enforcement is occurring, it's occurring. We're monitoring it. And they know that, when they drive down 6th Avenue or any of our streets, they have to proceed in a safe, lawful manner and use extreme caution. I don't drive out here more than 6-7 miles an hour because I understand we don't have sidewalks and people come out. And thankfully, we've maintained that. At the time I've been here as your chief, we've had no pedestrian accidents, and for that I'm very thankful. So we're gonna make sure that especially Sixth Avenue is where they pick up. And I am not gonna at any time stand here and deny that. I will not do that. That's not the oath I took. They do pick up speeds that are excessive to what the lawful speed limit is. And if they do, and I have a good amount of officers that are radar certified, they, you know, they're gonna get stopped and told that they need to slow down.
Commissioner, excuse me, if I may, what gets the neighborhood the reputation of, don't think about speeding through Biscayne Park is the enforcement. It's not a static sign that says don't speed. Because if it was a static sign, then the speed limit sign would be enough. So what we want to do is being able to show that enforcement. It's one of the reasons why on 6th Avenue, I've asked when police are needing to do reports that they're parked on 6th Avenue, that they have their lights on. Because as you drive through the county, you're going to see empty police cars all over the place. The first day that car is out there, that might hold up traffic. But for the rest of the week that's there, people are zooming right by it because they know there's no cop in there. So you take a look at that when you add the dynamic signs, which are that speed feedback, right? That radar that flashes at you when you go faster than the speed limit. Those are visual cues that people, when they're driving, all of a sudden, oh, that's a change. That's something that they're aware of. A normal speed limit sign, even the painting the speed limit on the ground, when it's first installed, yes, that will have some effect, but over time that effect diminishes, right? And because it becomes white noise for the driver. So many times when we're on the expressways and we're driving, we might even get to where we're going, like, how did I even get to this? I don't remember driving on the turnpike or any of these things, because it just becomes routine for us. So having those things that are dynamic, that are in front, having that enforcement from police, that is what starts getting you that reputation. Man, every time I drive by there, I see police pulling people over. I've been pulled over. All of those things, that's what starts generating that kind of reputation for the village.
Madam Mayor, if I may, Mac, are you done? I just wanted to say thank you, Chief, for putting this together, and Albert. Historically, we've been very reactive, right? And I think engaging with FDOT is one answer that can help us long-term, obviously with the continued enforcement and whatnot, but we don't want to just be reactive. We want to have a plan that could potentially help us now and tomorrow and in the future. So, I appreciate you guys engaging with FDOT. I think that that's really, because it's a state road, it's really the only way to go. Having said that, all reputations are not necessarily good, Mac. We have a history here with, we know the history here with the police that wasn't very good. Yes, I get what you're saying, but I agree with the chief that, I don't want to be someone that is pushing our officers to the edge where they may consider doing something that maybe is not the best thing to do because they're getting pressure, but that they should be following the rules and obviously enforcing our laws, but that we also put in place things that will help us mitigate the issues that are on 6th Avenue. And we all know that they exist there, and they existed way before you got here. And hopefully we can mitigate that going forward. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Art, if I may, just to be clear, I wasn't suggesting that they be like overly aggressive and, I was just saying nothing speaks louder than a ticket. So let's be
Understood.
clear on that. A ticket speaks louder than a sign, something painted on the road, yellow flashing lights, and it gets people's attention. So what measurements are we going to see back to see what these new, because you're talking about a certain number of details a week, and you have a list here of things you're going to do differently. When can we expect to see measurements back to see what kind of an impact this is making? Because I mean, what's going to, the truth, the proof is going to be in the pudding, right?
Right.
It's like-
So if we're talking about a three-prong approach, you're talking about enforcement. We're talking about what the actions that we're working with DOT, which leaves more of a
That's very long
lasting
term. Yeah,
impression.
yeah.
And then the third one is, code enforcement, working with the residents, educating them, getting them to buy along and properly maintaining those line of sights and their trees, the plants out there, the trees. So when it comes to the enforcement, we do that on a monthly basis. So I think the, you know, we provide the manager every month our monthly report, but we can do on a quarterly basis. So you have a comparison what the numbers look like. And we can provide a report on the discussions with DOT. Obviously, the way I look at it is, as long as we continue to engage them and express to them our concerns, it's harder for them to just ignore us. So we're gonna continue working with them, and we'll provide you feedback.
Commissioner, I would tell you, for me, from an administration standpoint, I think the overall success is all these things that we're trying to accomplish, are they successful in lowering the crash rate?
Yeah.
Because you have tens of thousands of people who drive on a daily basis through 6th Avenue, and you can ticket so many per day as much as we're able to. So just having, just issuing tickets, an officer has a discretion to issue a warning or to issue a ticket. So it's not always a consistent base to look at, but I think ultimately between the enforcement, between the various things, I'll just call it infrastructure on 6th Avenue, putting both of these things together, and also with the code enforcement with some of the properties along 6th Avenue, if we're able to see, that we have a reduced accident rate on 6th Avenue, then I would call it very successful. Because I think ultimately that some of those accidents that we'll have on 6th Avenue have been pretty serious and have even jeopardized lives. So to be able to limit or eliminate that as much as possible, I think is a key for success there.
I'll agree, but we put a plan together like this and show it to the community. I think it's always important for follow-up, and it just makes people
Absolutely.
understand that it's easy to think nothing's being done when you aren't aware of what's being done. So I think it's important to report back to the community and
Yes.
have them know what's steps that are being taken and progress being made.
We'll provide, besides the monthly report to the manager, we'll provide a detailed quarterly report of what we discussed, and then it can be shared with the commission, and then
And I used to like the beat. It was nice to get the beat, and that's like great information to put in the beat,
Yes. Yeah, we're working on that, but we're waiting for Winterfest so we can include the what occurred, and then we'll close the year with that.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Albert.
Thank you, Chief. Code enforcement is working already because there are streets that you cannot see when you're coming out of the side streets, 18th and 19th onto 6th Avenue. And this is really a hazard, so code is already working on that. Okay, 5B, the nomination of the vice mayor.
I
want to thank Judy Himmelberg, who's been the vice mayor. As you know, every 6 months, the vice mayor changes, and it goes in alphabetical order. And I nominate McDonald Kennedy as the vice mayor for December through May. Do I have a second on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The vice mayor is now Vice Mayor Kennedy. Public comments. I'd like to open up the floor for public comments. We'll take the ones in the room first, and then we'll call people on Zoom. Barbara? Hello.
Hi, Barbara Kuehl, 777 Northeast 111th Street. I'm happy to hear they're working on the visibility triangle. Can you hear me?
Talk louder.
Okay. I'm glad they're working on the visibility triangle on 6th Avenue, but the interior roads are just as bad. We walk, we ride our bikes, and it's very dangerous. And these things have been there for years, and they're not hard to find, but they're all over. And as far as the speeding on Sixth Avenue, I agree, because no one could speed inside the village. The condition of the roads in the village are at a point that it's dangerous. It's dangerous to walk. It's really dangerous to ride a bicycle. And when you're going over the roads in a car, it either can damage your car or you can have an accident. And I don't know how many years we've been talking about actually doing something on our roads, but we're here now and I still haven't heard anything about an actual plan to start resurfacing the roads. And you get to a point when you let them deteriorate that instead of just being able to resurface it, you're going to have to redo the entire road. 111th Street. I don't know if any of you commissioners go down roads where you don't live, but travel across from Griffin on 111th Street and you'll see what I'm talking about. 114th Street, right in front of the Village Hall, the log cabin. Everybody that's coming into our village has to drive over a road that looks like it should have been fixed 10 years ago. And I understand we're doing drainage problems for flooding. Look, I don't know what these projects are. I mean, I have never seen a list. I've never seen when these things are going to be addressed. I heard there were 5 projects, but the roads need to be done at the same time. The roads to me affect people every single day. And the village, I don't want to get into how bad it makes the village look, but it's a danger. We have, I heard a few months ago, you had $1.5 million that came in. There's money. We have money in the reserves. We need to start. And as a resident, I really want to hear that this is starting now and that in the next year, it'll be activated because it's going to take time. And as far as Public Works being busy with the drainage, Public Works does not do roads. They don't even do drainage. I mean, they may oversee something. We have companies that do that. So it's not as if our employees are tied up with something. So please, commissioners, advocate for new roads. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Brad Piper, 1008 Northeast 116th Street. Anybody who knows me realizes that I actually hate this. I hate public speaking. That's why you never see me up here. And but I do have some things I do want to say. And first, I would like to thank Mario. I think he's doing an excellent job. I think Code is doing an excellent job. I do know that we have a lot of work to do. And I do know that because of the lack of enforcement over the last 20 years or whatever, that it's going to take a while. However, I will state that you guys are going to have to get used to me complaining about trash because I will continue. My last email was driving home one night and family guests coming to dinner, and we have 18 piles of trash on 116th Street. I mean, that's just beyond the 3 or 4, okay, people miss it, whatever. That's just residents not caring. That's no impact. Like there's no, they're just doing it because they want to. They need to be cited. We need to do something. We need to drive the message in that, if you're going to break the code and you're going to do it consistently, that you are going to get cited and you're going to get fined. Another thing, I agree with Barbara. For during COVID, I did try to take my bike out, dust it off from Colorado, and get some exercise. And honestly, it was hard. I mean, it was very complicated. And then I ended up, buying a $300 bike rack and hauling my bike at, to a bike path someplace, and that's really shouldn't be. So we should look at the roads and we should look at trying to do a little better in that department. Signage, I kind of disagree with Mac. I think that the old signs are kind of antiquated. I mean, we have other communities that don't have to put up signs, you know, that warn people of, you know, Biscayne Park is hard on speeding and, you know, don't speed. Just, if we're just enforcing and we're doing our job, I don't think we need to have all that sign blight out there. And I don't, you know, it reminds me of driving through southern Georgia and the, you know, it's kind of an odd thing to have. And Biscayne Park in this area is the only city that I know that actually has that type of sign. It's kind of just a scare tactic, and it might work, but I think we can do it in a more professional manner. My other thing that I do want to address is email between residents and commissioners. And I have recently, and I'm sure that all of you know this, because we've had public records requests and emails flying all over the place. Recently, there's been an issue when I sent out an email to one of the commissioners that email found its way to a neighbor of me reporting trash, the 18 piles of trash. And it got to that neighbor in a very kind of deceitful, questionable fashion. Sent out of the city server to a private email account of the commissioners and then sent to the resident. And then hence the feedback when that email got sent out to other people in my neighborhood. I mean, it's really, really serious, and it's bad optics all the way around. And, you know, I hate for this to happen. And as you know, I don't like to come out here and sit and, you know, frown on you guys and give you a hard time and complain and moan and whatever. But this was just not right. It was the wrong thing to do, and it needs to be addressed. And I'm not going to name names, but the commissioner that did it, I am going to allow you to address this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like to address it because when you come to my property,
Excuse me, after public
Okay.
comments, you can make comments, please. Is there anybody else that want to make public comments? We will have the board's comments later if you want to do.
Yeah, I just was going to ask, actually, there's a couple things I was wondering if we were going to have time to speak to the resolution and also the ordinance on the colors. It's at the time that we were going to speak. I just want to make sure that we're going to have time to actually address that. So I do have some comments on both of them. And also the Sector C discussion, will there be public comment or is that just a board discussion? Just a board discussion? Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll just
As the head of
I'll
the
just
board.
reiterate the planning board memo that was sent out. I just then as a Gage Hart's on 1029 Northeast on 14th Street as a resident. When I first moved here 22 years ago, the two things I loved about when I would be at like events and something, people go, "Where do you live?" I go, "Biscayne Park." They'd go, "Where?" That was the first one. The second one was, "Don't even think about speeding." So I appreciated the signs, and actually I was really sad to see them go. And I don't think it was a bad thing, actually. I think it was, we had a reputation, and you know, people didn't speed in our town, and so I don't have a problem with it. I wish I could see them back up, actually. So other than that, I think Chief Carrera is doing a great job, and I'll hold my other comments to the time.
Thank you, Gage. Are there any other public comments in the room here? Okay, can we go to the Zoom? Would you please raise your hand? I see Jill Ruchin has her hand up. Go ahead, Jill. Yeah.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Perfect. This is Jill Grukin. I live at 12010 Northeast 11th Court. and I'm addressing the commission and this comment as the chairperson of the Biscayne Park Safety Watch group. And I actually was going to make a comment before I even heard Chief Cabrera speak just now about the issue of speeding and accidents on 6th Avenue. I'm aware that some people have been complaining about that. In fact, I've only been recently involved with the Safety Watch, but I have heard so many positive comments from Biscayne Park residents about safety in general in Biscayne Park and our police force, and especially our Chief Cabrera. People seem to fully trust him and believe in him, and I think for good reason. And I appreciate his response to one of the questions just now, that he prefers not to be the village that no one wants to visit because enforcement is so severe, but rather to be a village that people want to drive through, and also want to drive through safely because they respect the village and wouldn't want to hurt anything in it. I really appreciate that he said that. But knowing that there may be issues with speeding, and it sounds like there are accidents on 6th Avenue, and people are discussing the don't even think about speeding signs and our reputation for being this sort of, death to speeders village. I just would like to point out, I'm not sure if we know how many of these accidents were actually caused by speeding. We know that visibility issues are also there. Like when you're coming out of, say, 119th Street and you're turning left or right onto 6th Avenue, you can't see at all if anything is coming, like at all. Every time I do it, I'm just guessing and praying that nothing's coming. So I think that could be an issue as well, which I know was discussed. But it's very important before we completely focus on speeding and how do we enforce it. And we got to get signs that say, don't even think about speeding, and try to get our reputation back. Let's make sure that that's actually a major factor in these accidents. I don't know if it is, it might be, it might not be. And my personal opinion is that the signs that say, don't even think about speeding, I'm sorry, but it's kind of
Excuse
a
me,
joke.
finish your thought, Jill.
Sorry. I just don't think the signs are that great of an idea. I think they're silly and people kind of laugh at them and they're not effective. So that's my comment for that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre? I believe you
Yes,
were
ma'am.
next.
Thank you very much. Andres Echenique here, 11010 Northeast 9th Avenue. Good evening, everybody. Going to be very brief. Somebody just mentioned, one of our neighbors here, I'm not sure who it was, about the streets. Fantastic. We really need a little bit of work on the streets here also, but I'm concerned about 107th coming into the here down south. I know it's not our jurisdiction probably, but they just tore that up to do some waterworks. And are they just going to leave it like that? It's over, because it's a mess, and I don't know to what extent we can, push. I don't know if it's North Miami, what city that is right there as it borders the golf course, passing the railroad tracks. I mean, they finished that job and they just left that a mess, guys. I don't know if anybody has the beef that I have there, but come on. This is ridiculous. And I don't know what we can do to press them to finish that up or patch it up a little bit better. It's just horrible. So that's what I have to contribute. I hope somebody can tell me what the story is there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Janie Anderson.
Thank you. Janie Anderson, 11th Place and 119th Street. First of all, ditto everything Barbara said. Totally agree. Now, on to residential sector C. First of all, thank you, Gage, and to the entire P&Z board for bringing this forward. This is not an abstract issue, something that might happen, let's wait and see, whatever. It's happening. Lots are being divided. 2 structures are going to be going where one used to live. That is a real quality of life issue. We're talking more people, more cars, and more paving in one form or another. There is no part of this city that needs greater density, but certainly not an area that is already very densely populated due to the high concentration of duplexes. And what this city also doesn't need is more rentals. What are we, 1,200, 1,250, give or take, living units? And of that, approximately 20% are rentals. That is a huge number for a small city. At the very least, you guys need to consider upping the minimum lot size so that it prevents what is about to be happening. And we need encouragement of changing, of going from multifamily, converting to single family. Again, it's a quality of life issue, it's pride of ownership, it's owner occupancy, but it really does make a difference. We can't keep going down this path. Look at what the Airbnbs, the issue that's causing now. We're finally getting around to it because it's gotten progressively worse. And the same will happen if we don't pay attention to this. And we're going to start seeing us beginning to look like the zero lot line places we all don't want to move to in Broward. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie. Nancy Davis?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I just, Nancy Davis, 11927 Northeast 6th Avenue. As of last month, I've lived on Northeast 6th Avenue for 28 years, so I've pretty much seen it all. I'd just like to give you my opinion. My opinion is I'm really, really upset that the don't even think about speeding signs are gone. I also agree with you, Gage. When I moved here, people would say, where do you live? And I would say Biscayne Park, and they'd say, huh, what? I like that. I like living in a crazy little unique place that hardly anybody knows about. And so I really miss that part of it. And I would also just like to encourage with this 6th Avenue thing of more police enforcement and presence, I think is probably the most important thing to me. Thanks.
Thank you. David Raymond?
Hi, good evening, everybody. A few things. So on the roads and the drainage, I know I suggested.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
David Raymond,
Name and address.
11520 Northeast 9th Avenue. I just gave it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just gave my name and address there. So a couple of things. One, the roads and the drainage. Last year that we have a project schedule that's put out that residents know and can see when things might be coming up. So I think that's important. On the traffic issues, I grew up in this area and I love the don't think about speeding signs. And when I would meet people and I tell them I live in Biscayne Park, and the first thing they would say to me is don't even think about speeding. And when I was a kid and I had to drive through here, I knew don't go past 30 miles an hour, just don't do it. Anyway, the roads that are really bad, 111th Street is really, don't even bother to take your bikes on there. And if you walk there at night, bring a flashlight because it really is bad. So if you could share a schedule on some of these things, it would be great. The trash pickup, not addressing big trash piles or anything, but great waste. I think they've done a really good job so far. We've only had one missed pickup the very first week, and I'm sure there was some confusion. So I think they're doing a really good job. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then last couple of things, one on the ordinance on 10A regarding parking. I know you're going to have this under public hearing, but just in case I'm not here for that, 5.61 and 5.62 seem to kind of contradict each other, or else my reading comprehension has severely declined, because one part talks about non-conforming properties having a year to come into compliance. And then part 2 says the existing properties may remain this way unless they need 50% repair. So I don't know if that needs to be tweaked a little or not. Finally, I know there's a workshop this Saturday, and I saw that on Nextdoor. I have not been getting any meeting notices or any information from the village since I signed up for the new village email list. I did go on and verify it, but I didn't get anything for today's agenda. I haven't seen anything about the workshop on Saturday. And the last thing I'll say about Saturday, I know there's a discussion in there about having our own tree ordinance. It would be really nice if things like that in the future. I'm on the Parks and Parkway Board. I'm just speaking as one member, but it would be great if something like that could have come to us first to maybe have some input on and looked at some best practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Anderson?
Sir, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Bob.
You're muted.
No, we can't hear you. I don't know if maybe you want to
We use
take over Janie's iPad.
Thank you for your patience, everybody.
I don't know, I unmuted myself.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob.
Can you
go
hear me?
ahead. Yes.
I'm sorry holding up the meeting, but I just seem to have technical difficulties all the time. But I just want to concur with what the chief was saying on the speeding and really doing heavy enforcement. And this is something that we've been lacking for a long time. And I'm glad the chief has stepped up for doing that. Our roads, I know the manager has been working on doing drainage, and obviously if you tear up the road to do the drainage, the road gets resurfaced. And it would be good to go ahead, maybe at the next regular commission meeting in January, that the residents could have some kind of an idea of when the priority of the projects and where they're going to be starting at. And thank you.
Thank you. Amy Raymond? Can't hear you.
My notes in there.
You got me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Amy Raymond, 11520 Northeast 9th Avenue. I just want to put my 2 cents in because I don't come too often to commission meetings. I want to reiterate again about the roads because we walk about 2 hours a day, morning and night. And I think I did talk to somebody in Public Works today, and he said they're going to be looking at, they were ordering asphalt, I think, to fill in some of the potholes, because I know we're not going to be fixing all the roads. I think as long as they fix the potholes right now, that would be great, because boy, there are some huge potholes on so many streets. It's unbelievable. So I wanted to say that. But the second thing and the last thing I wanted to talk about is speeding, because I mean, I love the chief, but I just think that he's like, well, we give, I don't know what the variance is. Like if it's a 30 miles an hour, like, can you go 35? Can you go 40? Because most people here, I mean, if it's 25, most people here speed. I would say half of the people speed. And on 9th, I walk on 9th, on 10th, I walk on 7th, half of the people speed, and they're not going 35, I mean, they're going 35, 40 probably. So I just would personally like to see, I don't know if you have to give tickets, and I agree with Mac that tickets do work, but at least stop these people, because they're really, really, I always get out of the street and move to the sidewalk, always, because I've had so many close calls with these drivers. So that's all I want to say. And thank you for everybody's hard work. The commissioners, everybody, the mayor, the manager, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to close public comments and open it up to commission replies. And I believe Commissioner Himmelberg wants to speak first.
Okay, thank you. Number one, if anybody sends an email to the village, that is public record, and that can go out to anybody who requests that. Number two, when somebody comes to my property and is not happy and the neighbors are out in their yards and they see and they hear and it's in broad daylight, then they actually ask me, and I can't lie, and I'm sorry. I have to respond to people's requests for the information, and it's not my job As Mr. Piper said, to police my neighbors. That's for code enforcement and police and not for the commission to do. Matter of fact, the charter strictly prohibits the commission from interfering with the daily operations of the village.
Okay, is there any other commissioners that wish to speak?
Yeah, let me say something. So I'm listening to all the comments and I just want to say something that sort of overall, I think will help with a lot of these issues. And I'm like really the broken record here, but we have really poor communications in the village. And I think Mario stepped out of the room, but I think in his report today, he's going to be discussing his communication plan that will solve a lot of this. So when he gets the help that he says he needs to help us communicate better, it will help in a lot of ways, because I agree, a lot of this is just people not knowing what's going on, not getting reports back, and residents not knowing. I talk to residents who still aren't aware that the trash schedule even changed. So and that's why you see trash cans and piles out on the wrong days all over the village. I live on the half of the village that it changed. So I know, I walk out the end of my driveway and I can see trash out on the wrong days up and down the street. So Brad, I hear you loud and clear. I hear you loud and clear on everything you said. And regarding, how your email should be handled, I hear you on that too. But I don't want to steal Mario's thunder because I think he's going to give us a report about that. But that would solve a lot of the things that we hear here on a regular basis if this village communicated better about what it was working on, the projects that are in action. There are a lot of things going on in this village. Mario has a lot of balls in the air. We're aware of it up here, but unfortunately residents aren't aware of all the things that are being worked on simultaneously. So that will help a lot.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I want to say something to Andre Echanik. Maybe it's how you pronounce your last name, Andre. I can't tell if you're still here or not. The street that
Yes,
you're
sir, I am.
referring to.
Thank you.
Hi there. The street that you're referring to is not part of the village of Biscayne Park. I'm not sure if you're aware. That is.
Go back and forth on
Okay. So I wanted to make sure you were aware.
But they're in
of
my
that.
points, sir, if I may just add. I mean, is there anything we can do to pressure whoever the
Yeah,
next city over is to finish?
Right. So that, let me finish my comment. It's not our municipality over there. It's not our road to do anything about, but let's maybe Mario, who has contact and relationships with the neighboring municipalities, maybe he can reach out and find out what's going on over there, because a lot of us travel out that road. I went to dinner on Saturday night and thought the exact same thing when I drove down the street. So let's see if Mario maybe can find something out for us.
Okay, are there any other commissioners that wish to answer any of the complaints? Okay. That opens up to village boards. I believe, Gage, you're one of the ones that want to speak. So, planning and zoning.
Yeah, hi, Gage Hartung, Planning and Zoning Board. So just in reference to, again, I'm not sure if this is the time to talk about it. The color resolution, color palette resolution. The intent of the board was to give a general palette to the residents to stay within, so that the commission knows that like with the metal roofs, there's a palette. We're not dictating what color gray, what color thing, but that's why we would like for all permits to come through the board for us to review. So the way it's worded, it says any variation from said standard makes it seem like if they want to do something outside of that palette, they have to come before us. The intent of us was that any permits for painting driveways must come through the board, not any variations of. So I just want to make sure that language is clear, that that's not what the intent of the board was to, we want to be able to, maintain control of that. And then again, on ordinance, the off-street parking, we will have public comment at that time. I have a personal, I guess a personal one that I'll talk about on that. And then as far as the planning board goes, we got a new member. Unfortunately, wasn't able to attend last night. The board is working fine. We're addressing again records amount of permits and applications, and everything is working fine. So that's my board report. Thank you.
Thank you, Gage. Are we very strict on that? Because I saw an orange house the other day, and we do have a purple house, so I don't know too much about our palette. Gary, do you wish to speak? Oh, Barbara, that's,
For Park and Parkways, I wanted to let everybody know, you probably are aware that the new trees are in. And the old trees are doing very well, and they're doing so well that we've made a recommendation that the trees be pruned. And we prefer that they be pruned by an arborist. I think SFM is going to be doing the pruning. I don't think they've started yet. And I had other issues I wanted to talk to the commission about. And, you know, actually what you just mentioned before, the big problem here is communication. Our board is an advisory board. We're here to advise the commission and the manager, but there seems to be a disconnect. It seems that we're not looped in with the village. There's no communication between the village and our board when it comes to things on the grant, the follow-up. We've gone over different issues that we had with last year's grant, where they were costly mistakes because there just wasn't communication with us. Another thing that we had a problem with, the village, the log cabin. Park and Parkways has been advocating since the renovation that we have appropriate lighting, safe walkways, and handicapped accessible features. When there was money budgeted, we, without any discussion with our board, we received plans from Calvin Giordano that they had already drawn up plans, which we paid for. And yet the plans didn't cover the things that we had been advocating, the lighting, and in the plans, they had a lot of landscaping. They had a patio area. They had accommodations for the memorial bricks that the foundation had at one time talked about. And we recommended a workshop with other boards and Calvin Giordano. And there were 9 people that attended. All 9 people were from 4 different boards, longtime members that are very invested in this village. And you've all been on a lot of workshops and a lot of meetings. And I can say without a doubt that there was universal agreement from the people that attended. And the one thing was nobody wanted the memorial bricks. It was something that was thrown out a long time ago, 2 commissions ago, and for some reason it's been kicked down the road. And once and for all, nobody wants it. Nobody wanted a patio area that was designed into these plans. It was going to, the patio was going to be in near the roots of the oak tree, which could cause damage. It was going to be an extra expense, and there really wasn't any purpose for it. The lighting, that was the key issue in this, was not included. And another very big thing is everybody was asking, why wasn't the scope discussed before this went to the engineering firm? The people, we asked the landscape manager who was there, why did this happen? And he said, well, sometimes we throw things out so people can get ideas of what's going on. But the fact is, we knew what we wanted. We knew what this village needed. And a simple conversation with our board from either the manager, public works manager, commission, it would have been accomplished. And they could have done one set of plans that would have accomplished this, and we wouldn't be paying for a set of plans that we didn't need. So this all comes down to communication. We've made proposals about next year's grant, the tree grant. It was clear from the time we met Mario that he told us he did not want to go for the grant this coming year. there's very little support in our ideas of landscaping, the trees. And our board really wonders, do you want, should we continue? Because honestly, we will spend hours, weeks, taking care of these things, doing the weeding, the pruning, doing things to pick up the slack because we didn't have employees, waiting for things to be in place. And it's never really materialized. And now we don't seem to have the support from the manager or Public Works. They don't seem that interested in pursuing our goals, which is doing landscaping to fix things up. And if that's the case, then I'd like it to be clear so that we don't continue, because I'm not going to waste my time, and the board members don't want to waste their time. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Gary?
Eric Hewell, 777 Northeast under 11th Street. A little bit reluctant to talk this evening since I don't know if this constitutes an official meeting since Linda Dillon's not here. Oh, she's on Zoom. Well, you know, this is the first time in history she hasn't been here in person. At our last board meeting, which was last Thursday, we had some discussion. We usually have a general discussion at the conclusion of the meeting. And we discussed two things. One was administrative citations, and the other thing was the lack of knowledge and understanding of common code issues in the village, particularly administrative citations and trash, the whole issue of sanitation. Administrative citations actually are a very good tool. You know, it's less cumbersome, it's less time consuming, and it's immediate. Nevertheless, we still have some weaknesses. One of the things that the code officers have brought up a couple of times is they don't feel that the fines are sufficient enough to act as a deterrent, that they should be raised. People just don't seem to care about a $25 fine. So we are proposing that they be raised immediately, the initial fine being $50, with the exception of loud noises and barking dogs, which we are proposing a $75 fine. There are also, we have some recommendations for some additional administrative citations. One for trash piles composed over including construction waste, which is a code violation. Trash piles that are spilling into or on the pavement. Now, this seems to be something that I've noticed in the past several months, where people with nice grass like to kind of push their stuff out in the street rather than keeping it in their swale. And that, again, is, you know, blocking the right of way. Unregistered boats, RVs, and trailers that are parked in the swale. This is something the code officers have brought up as a common problem. And oversized trash piles. Actually, there is no fine for oversized trash piles. And I tell you, we are really fed up. I mean, I have records of trash piles that have literally been there for up to 3 weeks. You know, a $25 fine for leaving, you know, not bringing a garbage can in at the right time versus $25 for having a trash pile sit out in front of your house. You know, it's just not even equitable. I had recommended a $100 fine. The board wanted to make it $75 fine. But the other thing is, what's the policy on that? What's the policy on trash piles? I mean, I don't think anybody really knows. I mean, you know, for a long time, it seemed that people got this special dispensation where it could sit out there and they could get, you know, a quote from a private entity or a quote from, you know, Waste Pro at the time. I don't know what the deal is today, but, you know, there's no probably more than half of these piles are a result of a service that has come in and done, you know, a lot of tree cutting or, you know, other removal of foliage and piling it in the street and taking off, which in and of itself is a violation. but you got to catch them in the act. There's a number of services, even within Biscayne Park, that'll haul trash. You can put it out incrementally. But I really feel that we really have very lax enforcement there, and it gets worse and worse and worse. I was happy that, we had a couple of commission members at the meeting, Judy Hamelberg and Matt Kennedy, who witnessed firsthand some of the confusion and misunderstandings with residents. I think, one example of this gentleman that's been a resident for 30 years, and he was given a citation for having his garbage can out, a day beyond when it was supposed to be. He was under the impression that he got the violation because his garbage can was stored not outside of 10 feet of the pavement. I don't know where he got that. I don't, makes no sense at all. We have other people that have contested administrative citations because they can get a courtesy notice. So they don't even understand the process. Anyway, actually, as far as the hours that you are supposed to keep to in placing a garbage can and then removing it the next day, it's almost like you're trying to entrap people, because go find that. It's not on the website. It's not published. It's hidden in the Land Development Code. And quite frankly, people aren't digging through the Land Development Code to find this stuff. I think it's, it's unreasonable to expect people to read through the Land Development Code on common issues. I know there is an intent to hire a consultant to update the website and all of that, but we've heard that refrain for many years. It's going to take time. And in the meantime, I really feel sorry for some residents because they really sincerely don't know. They come here and they're really upset and irate that they're getting violations, and they just aren't informed. Anyway, the board really, and I've said it, the board has said it, we strongly recommend that there is a flyer that goes out right away in the very near future. It's very simple. List the administrative citations, list the fines, talk about trash, explain to people, what the hours, you're supposed to store your garbage cans behind the house, out of sight, et cetera, et cetera. Barbara and I one day decided to count the number of garbage cans that were proudly displayed in front of people's houses on 11th Place between 111th Street and 121st Street. 25 houses had their garbage cans proudly displayed out front. There is finally a corrected synopsis from Great Waste, correcting some of their previous misstatements and kind of confusion on some things like something can't exceed 4 feet in length. And it's well done, and they show the map and what the route is and so forth. Unfortunately, I don't believe that was ever distributed. It is, if you want to go through the trouble of going to the website, going to Public Works, then going to sanitation, you can see it. Now, a lot of people are not going to do that. It could go out, but it just seems people can't seem to remember what day is what. And Matt Kennedy actually had a very good idea. Sorry, Matt. Well, I'm giving you full credit. Make up a plastic stick-on with the rules of the road, what the days are, what the hours are, what the rules are in terms of storing your garbage can, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and paste it on everybody's garbage can. We have 2 code officers. I believe they really want to do their job. I believe they're doing their job, but things are getting worse. And it goes to the broken window theory. When one person does it, and then another person does it, then pretty soon everybody's going to do it because they don't think there's any repercussions. They don't think anybody really cares. and getting out a flyer enumerating the things that I discussed, administrative citations and the rules of the road on trash would go a long way. It's a cheap and very effective way of educating the community. Sure, there'll be people that continue to do things the way they want, but there's also that body of people that will immediately realize they didn't know and they will start correcting things. And the purpose is not to make money. The purpose is not to penalize people. The purpose is to bring them into compliance. That is an exceptionally simple, effective tool. Anyway, I thank you for listening. Oh, and by the way, I just want to mention, you know, I wrote to the commission, Mario, the chief, about this little flyer that was outside the building clerk's office, okay? There's misinformation in it. It's incomplete. I said, don't distribute this thing. It's still sitting there and being distributed. This does not help when you're telling people incorrect stuff about code. You talk about notice of violation, but you don't talk about administrative citations. That's why people come and say, I didn't get a courtesy notice. I'm not going to pay this administrative citation. Anyway, this should be removed, and we shouldn't be putting stuff out like this. Somebody needs to read this stuff and make sure it's accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Jill?
Hi, yes, commissioners. Good evening once again. This is Jill Grukin. I am the vice president of the Biscayne Park Foundation. And just in case anyone doesn't know, the Biscayne Park Foundation is a nonprofit charitable organization which was organized to come up with ideas and projects for Biscayne Park and to raise funds towards those ideas and projects. And before I just get into my report for this evening, I do want to thank Barbara Kuhl for making her report for the Parks and Parkways. I was also at the meeting that she was referring to about the log cabin potential project. And I do just want to confirm that the foundation voted a few months ago at a meeting to close the topic of the personalized bricks because it just wasn't going forward and it seemed to be wasting time. And I had come to the commission previously and asked the commissioners if they felt that it's a project that would go forward, and it seemed kind of ambivalent, and we all put it aside. So just to confirm what Barbara said about that. So anyways, getting back to the foundation report, we've been diligently working on an idea that we have to revamp our rec center. We've brainstormed and actually drafted up an idea and a plan to arrange and decorate and furnish the rec center. And we voted to proceed with developing that idea further. Excuse me, and discussing it with Isa Thornell, the rec center manager. And we'll also be discussing with Mario Diaz, the village manager, and hopefully with individual commissioners, at least those that are willing to talk about it and hear us out. And so far, I've personally met with Isa, the rec center manager, a few times, and we've gone over the ideas together, revising things, discussing, brainstorming. It's just a starting point. We'd like to open a conversation with Biscayne Park government about this idea so that then we could begin to raise funds for the project if it's something that the Biscayne Park Commission would permit to go forward and if it's something the residents want. So tonight I just wanted to let everybody know that this is something that we are considering. And I wanted to ask a question, it might be for the attorney. Is it possible for the foundation members or me as the vice president of the foundation to approach commissioners individually outside of a meeting to like present the idea and discuss the idea? Or is this something that could only be discussed in a commission meeting? I don't want to approach and try to discuss something with a commissioner if that would be a violation of some kind.
No, that would not be a violation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I will be approaching commissioners, beware. And then I also wanted to let everyone know our next meeting is next Tuesday, December 14th at 7 p.m. in the log cabin. And I would invite all the commissioners to attend. Village manager Mario, please come if you can. And rec center manager Isa Thornell told me that he may also be able to attend. We can discuss and brainstorm at that time and see if this is something that we could continue thinking about without wasting anybody's time. And that's my report. Thank you very much.
Can I ask Jill a question, please, real quick?
Go ahead.
Jill.
Yes.
this is Albert. The brick situation, I understand we've been talking about that for a really long time, back and forth for years now, apparently. But so what are we doing with the money that we've collected from residents that wanted to pay for those bricks? I mean, I know
So we voted in the foundation to offer those people their money back. Or if they preferred to just leave the money in the foundation for other projects. And many people did ask for a refund. Some of those people don't even live in the village anymore. So I know that George, our president, handled like managing those actual transactions, but it was completed one way or the other. The people who requested a refund received a refund, and the people who requested to just leave the money with the foundation for other projects, that remained. But the figure, the total figure that we're discussing is in the lower hundreds of dollars. So it's not, it wasn't quite a bit of money, but the people who wanted a refund got that, and the people who wanted to just let us use it for something else did that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. The village manager, Mario Diaz.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, newly Vice Mayor Kennedy, and Commissioners. Just a couple topics that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. The village does have a RFP out for communication support services. We are within a cone of silence. Bids should be due a little bit later this month, and we hope, depending on when the evaluation committee can meet, we hope to maybe bring that for you in January. Some of the topics that we'll look for that vendor to help us with is communication, not only with the various ordinances and the changes that we've had and the do's and don'ts to make sure that people are following those. We just recently had some driveway ordinances that we may be passing today. So those type of things are very important for people to understand. And I want to make sure that it's done in a way where it's layman's terminology so that it's not legalese and people understand that. Garbage, we've talked about, we did do a door hanger back when the contractor, the first month that the contractor was working, and we delivered it. I think we actually did a few of those, but we do want to make sure that we put consistent messaging out and make sure it's accurate, as well as code information as to, again, do's and don'ts. So there's going to be quite a bit of work that they're going to be able to help us. We do have a limited budget, so there's only going to be so much that we can do within the year. But I hope to be able to show you all and the community the value that the village will have with this type of vendor, so that we can dedicate more funding as we would need. Kind of connected to that, one of the good things that we've had over the past month, basically, we had additional door hangers and yard signs up in the medians with regards to signing up for the village email blast. In the month of November and the first couple days of December, we've had over 250 new people sign up for the emails, which is great. There has been a couple glitches in which some people have not received some of the emails. I asked that everybody check their spam folders to make sure, because sometimes it might be going in there before you validate that. So I also wanted to thank the commission for volunteering, going out, doing all those door hangers, and for Mac, when he brought that up, he also dedicated time to writing everything so that that can go out without adding additional work on staff. I want to formally introduce our new village clerk, Shantae Dabney. She's over here at the very end. She's been with us for about 3 weeks now, and she's hit the ground running, which is absolutely amazing. We really have a gem in Shantae, and I'm very happy to have her as part of our team. So thank you for joining us, Shantae. We also have a new grant service vendor on board. I was able to, during the budget cycle, we dedicated $10,000 for that. We're thinking maybe about 3 or 4 different grants. Part of that, I went out and got several different quotes for the service. Most of that came back at about $20,000 for that, but we do have one vendor that came in just under $10,000, which is amazing. This vendor also got us $50,000 from DOT for the transit development. So they are eager to continue that relationship that they just developed with us. And they'll be going, some of the initial projects that we've been talking about are trying to identify grants where we don't need matching funds. Because right now that's one of the biggest things that can hinder us. And there are several that they've already pointed out that they're going to get more information to address issues at the park, to address tree trimming, which is a major issue that we've had. We need to catch up. We've gone decades without properly trimming trees within the medians and swales that we've had to do, excuse me, so that do not have a matching aspect. There are also looking at the log cabin is in need of some roof repairs that we have to address. They are aware of a couple that they wanted to look that, again, does not have a matching grant. And we might even be able to, the surrounding area for lighting, landscaping, and everything, we might even able to piggyback all of that on to be able to do it. So again, they're already started the ground running, and we look forward to being able to apply. Their number one priority, as mine, would be the storm drain, because again, if we're looking at the roads, which has been discussed quite a bit tonight, if we repave all the roads and we haven't done any of the work underneath the ground, we're going to have to tear that back up. So essentially, we're just throwing money away, something that we do not have sufficient funds in the village for. So we need to take a strategic approach to that, and we're looking at the areas of addressing the flooding issues that we have and repaving the various sections of those roads where we do that work. So we're essentially getting, almost 2 projects for under one contract. Reported back in November the quarterly priorities for this upcoming year, something that we discussed not only in November, but we ended up discussing in September. We discussed projects in October, in August, and when we presented in July as well, and throughout the prior months as well. This has been a topic that we've discussed for the past 12 months that I've been here at the village. The current number one priority that we originally had money set aside and plans set aside for improving the drainage area on 9th Avenue between 116 and 115th. That project was completed. We have another project that we've already engaged in to do conceptual plans for 5 of the areas that the Stormwater Master Plan, which was developed in 2016, as well as various observations by staff, are some of the worst flooding areas, and even some of the worst paved areas as well. So we're talking areas like 121st and 11th Avenue, that whole alleyway and access point for 11th Avenue, which is actually a road, it's not an alley, is completely done. At one point, the village in prior years had a $10,000 budget to do. That's more of a $50,000 to $75,000 mark. So these road repairs are extremely expensive. You can do a temporary patch, which is what we're trying to do for potholes. But even just to do the resurfacing of a road is going to cost $50,000 to hundreds of thousands of dollars. To do the whole village, you're talking about $5 million. So that's not something that we can just easily do. We are leveraging the CITT funds and the ARP funds. We currently have our attorneys reviewing the legal documents in the RFP for a design. So we need to finalize the design of the next areas for that, and then construction as well. It's under one contract. So it's called the design build. Once legal reviews that, we just submitted our final comments to the engineer for some of the comments that they had. Then we'll be able to put that out and then bring that back to the commission once we have bid submit. I anticipate that over the next 60 days to have something in front of the commission, unless there's any further delays. After that, we need to develop a design plan for the ARP funds and then move forward with construction once the design. Those are going to be a multi-year projects. And again, 1.5 million for us, it's a lot of money and it's great. But when you're putting that money towards infrastructure, you're not buying a full loaf of bread. We do have a couple town halls that will be this prior to the end of the year. This Saturday, we'll have a town hall with regards to the revisions to the land development code. An initial presentation was already made to planning and zoning. They've gotten their feedback. They're adjusting their initial PowerPoint. We'll put that up as soon as we have that finalized for everybody to review prior to the town hall, as well as recommendations or just an overview of potential tree ordinances. There's no final recommendation being given. This is a town hall, same as the presentation with planning and zoning, to try to get everybody on the same page with regards to terminology, what things mean, how things impact, and then be able to start that discussion of what are the things that are needed. As always, we try to have some type of work, some type of direction that we can approach the community and approach the commission so that we can narrow the conversation and not have 1,000 different ideas and everybody talking different meanings with different things. So we try to approach it in a manner that will have the most productive conversations as possible. That is this Saturday at 10 a.m. We'll have it here at the log cabin. We'll also Zoom it and live stream it on YouTube. There is no votes taking place. It is just a discussion. The next one will be December 16th, which will be for the Ed Burke Park and Recreation Center for the parking that's surrounding there. Again, it's not a final recommendation. It's just like being able to explain and identify what options there are, and then the different strategies and how there's a low, middle, and high cost to the different strategies that one can do. Those are the major updates that I wanted to provide to everyone, and thank you for the time, Mayor.
Thank you, Mario. Okay, I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda. No. I'm sorry? I already asked. I know they don't have a report. I asked them before.
No, that was commissioner comments. That was on commissioner comments about the residents. We didn't ask for commission.
You didn't ask for commissioner reports.
You want a commission report? Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to comment on a couple of things. I know the boards were saying, and I know this from experience because I served on a recreation board. In our charter, it does say that the boards are formed to be an advisory to the commission and administration. And I think that we need to do a better job with communicating and bringing stuff in front of these boards to get their advice on it. And we haven't been really doing a good job on it. That's one of the reasons why the recreation board is not around. For that reason is nobody bothered to listen to the board and see what they wanted to do. So I hope in the future we can do a better job. I do agree with Gage and Barbecue that we need to come in front of these boards and see what advice they can give us. And then we as commission, doesn't mean we have to follow their advice, but we need to listen to them. And if we don't, then let's dissolve all the boards and just, give up having all of them. And I don't think we need to do that, but I think these people volunteer their time, their expertise, and we need to listen to what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners want to speak?
Yes, I'd like to.
Commissioner Hamilberg?
I'd like to thank the village staff for the amazing job they did getting turkeys and food to our residents for Thanksgiving. I think it was absolutely wonderful. It made a lot of people's holidays a lot easier. I'd like to thank the staff at Public Works for their very hard work digging out and trying to remove the stumps that are remaining. It is a difficult, laborious, and long process, and they are only able to remove about 2 stumps a week, but they're saving us a lot of money. So we need to be patient with the stumps. I attended the code compliance meeting this month. Their board was very, very hardworking and very, very patient with our residents. I applauded them for that. I attended P and Z last night. I want to thank that board for their hard work as well on behalf of the village. And I attended both the October and the December Miami-Dade League of Cities meetings with the manager and the mayor, which were kind of interesting, getting the opportunity to network with other people in other villages who do what we do.
Thank you. Commissioner Kennedy?
Yeah, I initially wasn't going to say anything about this, but I feel obliged to discuss what was brought up here tonight with a resident complaining about an email having been forwarded around and the result of that. And then Judy jumped in and discussed it as well. So I need to comment on it because it's troubling to me beyond what was in the email itself. So just so everyone's clear, everyone here on the day has received a very nasty email from a resident. And the sole purpose of that email was to verbally insult another neighbor. He was here tonight and he brought the matter up. One of the commissioners who received the email, Judy has now outed herself as that commissioner, forwarded the email to other neighbors on her very own block, and it culminated in a resident going after another neighbor in a very disparaging email. That's the email that we received. Now, Judy, while all emails to the village are certainly public record, that's very different than taking it upon yourself to share it with the intent of pitting a neighbor against another neighbor and adding a derisive message to that email about the neighbor in the process, which wasn't even brought up today. Commissioners can instruct residents to request records, Judy, but if you feel the need to share an email directly, I think it should be done through your official email account rather than forwarding it to your personal email and then sending it to your neighbor from your personal email. There was no positive intent in that email being forwarded, and the outcome was anything but positive, as we all read in the email that we received. You first forwarded that nasty email to your personal email address in what appears to me to be an attempt to hide the fact that you were involved in it. To be clear, so everyone understands this, every resident has the right to communicate on any topic with elected officials and staff. And they should be able to do so with the confidence that commissioners won't use those emails in a way that may incite attacks against them, whether those attacks are by email, verbally on the street, or even physically. Recently, as you're aware, Judy, the subject of your email was attacked physically by another neighbor, which led to an arrest. We live in a world where we live in a world where anger, rage, and hate quickly turn a corner into something more dangerous and tragic. And if you don't think that's possible, watch the news and hear people say things like, he's lived here for years and I never thought he would do something like that. Or we never thought it would happen in our quiet little village. Too often in America, we see that it does. Today it was a nasty email. Tomorrow could be very different. Our words and actions carry more weight as a commissioner than when you were just the neighborhood gossip. In a time when the world is on edge and when overly armed, angry people are looking for targets for their rage, it's our job to ameliorate rather than to instigate. We should be problem solvers rather than pot stirrers. It's time to deliver on that promise of civility for Biscayne Park. This was not a good look for Biscayne Park.
Number one, Commissioner.
Commissioner Hammelberg, you want to?
I had nothing to do with the event that happened months ago. That had absolutely nothing to do with me.
I didn't
So
suggest anything.
please don't say that that had anything to do with
To what
me.
I said, I said nothing.
And
of the sort.
again, when one person comes to my property and in broad daylight is interrogating me and yelling at me in view and in earshot of other people, and somebody asks, the only reason I forwarded was not an intent to hide. I'm not technologically adept. I just knew that I could forward it to me and send it because I don't have the email address for the neighbor across the street on my village stuff because I don't normally email.
You didn't know how to forward
So-
an email from your village address.
So I emailed from the village to me and then across the street. I did not distribute it to the entire neighborhood. I distributed to the person who was across the street from me, who overheard what was going on. He stayed there because he was concerned about me because he heard somebody raising their voice to me.
Okay,
He
but-
saw that I had gone around the neighborhood collecting other people's yard trash that was out and putting it in my bin to try and keep the peace in the neighborhood so that there wasn't as much out there.
Commissioner Hamilberg.
That
It's
was what
enough.
happened.
We all learned a lesson. Let's move forward, please.
I hope we did learn that lesson.
Okay, we have the consent agenda. Can I have a?
Make a motion to approve consent as is.
Okay, motion by Vice Mayor.
I
Kane,
second it.
seconded by
Commissioner Smith.
Ms. Maria. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is passed. Okay, ordinance 10A. That's 2021-13, amending off-the-street parking requirements. It's the second reading.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. An ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, amending section 5.6, off-street parking of Chapter 5, Transportation of the Biscayne Park Land Development Code, providing for amortization of non-conformities, amending the minimum off-street parking requirements for resident parking, eliminating minimum off-street parking requirements for visitor parking, limiting approved parking surfaces to only 40% of the front yard and requiring that the remainder of the front yard consist of landscaping and green area, requiring that all parking surfaces shall be of one material or of unified design throughout, amending and clarifying the allowable materials for parking surfaces, providing that concrete parking surfaces can be painted subject to the limitations set forth therein, prohibiting wheel stops in single-family and duplex dwellings, providing for drainage and maintenance requirements, requiring that any improvements to 50% or more of a parking surface shall require that the entire parking surface be improved, providing for inclusion in the code and scrivener's errors, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Okay, can we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-13, amending off-street parking requirements for the second reading. I also hope that this commission will enforce what was passed by commissions, the 5-minute rule by commissioners. Thank you.
Okay, a second on that?
Second. Are we opening it for discussion?
I'm going to do public comments.
Okay.
And then we'll open it up to the commissioners. Public, it's second, Commissioner Hamilberg, you seconded it?
Yes.
Public comments on ordinance 2021-13. I see David Raymond. Oh, I'm sorry, Gage is first.
Okay, sorry, I guess you're in the room first. Gage Hartung, 114th Street. I just want to come back to what was voted on last time when you reviewed it for the second reading of that last commission meeting. I just want to reiterate the how much I disagree with the taking out of the gradated parking spaces requirements. We recently, in front of planning and zoning, we've have 3 4 to 5 bedroom homes that are going in, and right now, if this ordinance passed the way it is, we would only require them to have 2 parking spaces. I just think that that's basically taking out an issue and pushing it on to the code enforcement, who's going to have to now deal with it when the cars are, for those 4 bedrooms, are going to be parked on non-approved spaces. So I know it was voted on, the board removed the language of the requirements of, and I wish that hopefully somebody would reconsider it and add it back.
Thank you. David Raymond? David Raymond? Is there anybody else that wants to
Aye.
speak on public comments?
Hi.
Go ahead, Mr. Raymond.
David, 209.
We're waiting for you, David.
And I raised this before. It's just 5 point. I'm sorry.
You're coming in
Can
and
you hear
out.
me? Sorry. 5.61 A, number 1 and 2 in that section I don't know if it's just the way it's written or I'm confused by it, but it seems that like number 1 conflicts with number 2, because number 1 says non-conforming properties that do not have an improved surface have until January 2nd, 2023 to have it permitted and installed. But then the next one says existing non-conforming parking services can remain until 50% needs to be fixed. I think you're trying to say 2 different things there, but the way I read it, I'm confused. Maybe somebody can explain what the intent is or what this was supposed to say, but I don't know if anybody else had that same issue.
Thank you. Do any other public comments? Okay, I'll close public comments. Commissioners, who would like to be first? Commissioner Hammelberg?
I'll speak. I agree with Gage that I think we do need to have at least 1 parking space for residents, guests. Again, as people are renovating and making their homes larger, we're minimizing the amount of parking, and that just doesn't really make sense.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that, we took out the parking spots last month, and Gage came up with something interesting, that a 5-bedroom house only requires 2 parking spots. Minimum.
That's with our changes. Without our changes, there's how many, Gage, for the 5-bedroom? It would be 3, right? So we moved it down from 3 to 2, so we made it less as the houses are getting bigger.
But if these people chose to do 2 parking spots in a 5-bedroom house, which I can't imagine, but it could happen, we're not doing anything about it. And I kind of agree with you, Gage. I hate to say that, but but I don't know that we shouldn't put it back in. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Well, one of the things that I've been looking at after reading a bunch of things back and forth on next door is that our code doesn't specifically specify that it specifies about off-street parking, but it doesn't specify about on-street parking, right? So technically, you can park on the swale, whether there's an approved surface or not. They can park on the grass. Yeah. So I think that the only concern that I have with this new thing that we're doing is that we're going to kind of forcing people to park on the swale instead of parking on their property if they choose to. So technically, if we tell them, look, you need 2 spaces in a 5-bedroom house, they can technically park on the swale, and there's nothing we can do about it currently as the code reads. So that's the only concern. I don't want to see cars parked. Ideally, I don't want to see cars parked on the swale. I prefer not to see cars parked on the swale. So I prefer to see cars parked on property. One of the questions that I asked the last time that Gage was here is that obviously this has been in our code for quite some time, and had it ever become an issue? And I think the only issue for us, and the argument for us was, well, we're asking people to put more concrete that they may not necessarily need and whatnot. But then what if they start parking on the swales? Now we're going to have a bunch of cars parked on swales. And that's a problem as well for me. So I don't know. This is a tough one because I don't want to see more concrete unnecessarily, but I also don't want to see cars parked on the swale. So it's a tough one.
I said I was like, I'm listening to what he's saying, and I agree with him. Vice Mayor Kennedy, you want to speak?
Yeah, please let me say a couple of things. So first of all, let's make sure we're all clear on this. We're talking about minimum number of spaces. It's not required number of spaces. They can, someone with a 5-bedroom home that Gage is referring to can still cover up to 40% of their front yard with parking. If they have a huge house, they can put a 40% times huge driveway in. We're not requiring a certain amount of parking. We're saying this is the minimum.
Right.
If we increase the minimum, which is the way it used to be, we are then forcing people to add more concrete to the world, more drainage issues. It's just a bad thing environmentally. And keep in mind, we're forcing people to spend more money on a driveway that they may not need or want. So you're putting a financial burden on people for something they may not even want. They may not want or need parking for 4 or 5 cars. They may not have a 3, 4 car family. In regards to the swale parking, you bring up a good point, Art, and people can park on their swales and they still could. Even if you tell them they have to put more parking in, they still could. Just so everyone's clear, nothing solves that problem because people can park on their swales, permanently park on their swales. You can go out there and line up cars. As a matter of fact, Art, I can go park my car on your swale right now.
Can't park
Be-
on yours, though.
You can't park on, well, you could.
No,
You have-
you got trees.
No, you absolutely could. Well, you could go squeeze between the trees like other people who have trees, but you can park on any swale. It's public land. Yeah. So you can go park on swales anywhere you want to in the village, and requiring minimum parking more than someone may want is not going to solve that problem. So you're possibly imposing a financial burden on someone that they don't need. You are covering more of the world with maybe an impermeable surface, and making people put something in that they don't want. Now, the fact remains is that most people who have larger houses probably do have more cars and are asking for larger driveways anyway. I dare say I've been to plenty of Gage's meetings, not all of them, but I see people trying to put in more driveway than we probably want them to. And I've watched your board talk people out of putting in so much driveway. So I've heard you talk people down from the amount of driveway they're putting in. And I'm specifically referring to the house over here on 112th, I think, who wanted a much larger driveway than it turns out maybe she even needed or that your board would have preferred for the property. So I see us facing the exact opposite problem, actually, which is getting people to do less because they can't do more than 40%. One of the corrections we made in this is that maybe the single biggest improvement we made to this is putting in that 40% rule regardless of what the material is, because before, Gage can attest, someone could make their whole front yard a driveway and there's nothing we could do about it if it was gravel. So you could have an impermeable, you could do 100% of your driveway impermeable, 100% of your front yard is an impermeable driveway, and there was no way for the village to say no. So we did correct that in here. So again, I don't think it's an issue that we need to worry about. These larger homes probably do have more cars and need more driveway. But again, it's the fact that we're requiring people to do something that they may not need. If they do need it, they're going to put in more driveway anyway. But it doesn't fix the fact that someone could go park on their swale. And it doesn't correct people parking in their lawns. Look, I walk this village a lot. I'm going to guess I walk the village probably more than maybe the rest of you combined. I don't know. I'm out there a lot. The number of cars I see parked in front yards with an empty driveway is mind-boggling to me. So I will walk past houses where there will be a 4-car driveway, 1 car sitting in it, and 2 cars parked in the front yard. There's one directly around the corner from me, drives me nuts every time I see it. So we have people with plenty of driveway who are still parking on unapproved surfaces, and I'm not talking swale, I'm talking front yards. So it's really not going to solve the problem. I think this is an environmentally responsible choice to make for this village. I also think it's looking out for people's finances because we're not overburdening them with something they don't need to put in. And keep in mind, guys, it's minimum parking. They can put in more. They can go up to 40% of their front yard. They can also park in their side yard. There's no limit to what they can put in their backyard for parking as long as they don't exceed the 50% lot coverage rule that we already have in our land development code. So we have lots of guardrails in place.
Okay.
Now, the only thing I would like to David Raymond, I hear what you're saying about 5.6.1A, 1 and 2. And if you read it and make sure you read the part that says that do not have an approved parking surface, that's what makes it all read properly. So Valerie, when I read this, my eyes stopped there as well. But then if you read it carefully, I think the wording is fine from what I read. Ed, you're nodding your head yes. I see how you wrote it, so I get it. I think it's okay.
Right, and just for clarification for anybody, 5.6.1 A1
Right.
addresses those properties that do not have a parking space.
Exactly.
They don't have driveway.
They don't have one at all. That's right.
Versus subsection 2 are those that have a parking surface that don't conform. with
That's
the
right.
code. So it's
Yeah.
some other surface, it's not.
Yeah, so it really is, as long as you make sure you read the part that says that do not have an approved parking surface. That's what separates it and makes it okay for me. The only thing that I would like to change in here is the fact that we're still allowing limestone as a gravel material, and I wish we weren't allowing that at all. I would very much support taking that out.
Okay, Commissioner Samaria?
After listening to Gage for a second time and having a conversation with him today, since he's on P and Z and he does deal with this, I think that I like to put back in the requirement for the 3-car driveway, especially for 5. Now, that doesn't mean they have to, do it, but I think we need to put that in there. And stopping, I agree with Commissioner Gonzalez, stopping people from parking on the swales. I like to see that where people are not parking on it. You can't stop the businesses that landscaping and people parking on it, but at least we can stop the residents from doing it, especially if they have their driveway. That's where they should be parking their cars, is on their driveway, not on the swales. So,
Mayor,
let me just say one thing before I forget. Having looked at this particular issue, I think that whenever, at some point, we're going to have a swale discussion in this commission, at some point, whenever the hell that is, I don't know. But when that comes up, this decision that we make today, for me, is going to have an impact on how I look at swales differently moving forward. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that for me, by taking away parking, I think we're going to need to add parking. So we might take away, we're taking away the requirement to build a certain amount of parking spaces. The people have the option currently to not build it and park on the swale, right? So they have that option. So when we get into the discussion for swales, it's going to have this decision is going to impact how I feel about swales and about parking. Just want you guys to know.
Mario?
Mayor, just to let you and the commission know, changing that requirement will require us to re-advertise and come back for another reading.
And
we'll live with this for a long time, so I'd rather get it right. I'd rather put in one more parking space and take out limestone, if it's up to me.
it doesn't work. It's not as easy as take out one parking space.
I
Keep
can
in
see a
mind-
problem if.
Sorry, Jenny, because this is related. Keep in mind that if we put that chart back in, the chart now no longer completely serves this village, because for detached one-family homes, single-family home like I live in, you live in, there is no listing there for a 5-bedroom home. We have 5-bedroom homes in the village. I think we have 6-bedroom homes in the village now, and we have very large houses going up, and that's not even included in here. So not only, you can't just put this chart back in, because now it doesn't completely address all the issues that we have. It does not have a 5, you'll see it maxes out at 4 bedrooms. We'd have to change that too.
But it also, if those houses are flips, people are building these monster houses and they're flipping them. So they're going to do the cheapest way they can. And that's how we can get stuck with the minimum of 2 parking spots on one of these giant homes. I really don't
To be
know.
clear, it does not say 5 bedrooms in there, Judy. There's no place if you have a 5-bedroom house.
We don't even have to do that. If we just put in 2 parking spaces plus 1 for visitors, that sets it right there.
You're suggesting that we just keep it the way it is in this current ordinance, where it says minimum
Add
of
1
2
visitor.
plus 1 visitor. Well, that's a whole different kind of worms, and that's a different thing altogether. So you're not suggesting we go back to based on how many bedrooms there are.
No.
You're just simply saying keep it the way it is and add a visitor.
Add the visitor space.
Keep in mind that if you do that, people can still go park on their soils, and they will.
That's something we can't stop.
I don't think we're going to be stopping that in this.
We can't stop that. That's. So what is your pleasure on this?
And if we add that 1 parking space in and keep the rest of it pretty much the same, do we have to re-advertise it?
I'd like to hear from the attorney.
I
I'd like to hear from the attorney on this.
Yeah, I did think that was going to be the case.
Talk
Now,
more into the microphone, Val.
I did believe it was going to have to be re-advertised, but now looking closely at the title, I misspoke. And the title says it's just amending the minimum off-street
says
parking
amend.
requirements. It doesn't say that oh, no, it does. I'm sorry. It does say eliminating minimum off-street parking requirements for visitor parking. If we're gonna add back visitor parking, then it would need to be re-advertised.
That's okay. We still have to live with this for a long time.
What's the old one say?
The old one says for how many bedrooms we have to add on more
Oh,
parking.
not the old one from this, but the previous one.
I like to get an
Says that? Okay.
opinion from the attorneys on this. On if you're understanding what we're discussing, I'd like to have an opinion from the attorneys. They think,
It's a policy decision. It's completely a policy decision whether or not to number of parking requirements.
I'd rather.
if a person is building a five bedroom, he should be having more space for parking. I mean, adding one more space is not going to make that much of a difference of cost wise. It's
If you're
not.
Building it for yourself, absolutely. But if it's a builder building it, to flip it, they don't give a damn.
Right.
They take the driveway straight up to the garage entrance, and by definition, it already has more parking than we're saying.
No, I like to move it back to the 3, even if I want to get this done right. I mean, yes, I don't like to spend money on more advertisement, but I want to get this done right because we're going to have to live with this for a long time. Sorry.
If I may, we can maintain the visitor.
Well, what's your pleasure?
Hold on. that was-
If we can maintain the elimination of the visitor parking, looking at the table, and then for resident parking, just revert back to what it was. And then for 4 bedrooms, you would change it to 4 bedrooms or more. So for 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, it would be 2 spaces. And then for 4 bedrooms or more, it would be 3 spaces.
So then someone builds a 6-bedroom house, you're only requiring 3 spaces. So how is that solving what you guys say is going to be a problem of a 6-bedroom house means automatically they have 6 cars. Now there's not enough spaces for them anyway. You're not solving the problem. You're not solving the problem. You're creating an issue for residents. And we don't have the problem of people not putting enough parking in. We have the reverse problem of people trying to put too much parking in. And then this, all we're doing, this is minimum, guys. You keep seem to be removing the word minimum from your heads when you have this conversation. It's minimum. It is not required amount. It is minimum. And we don't have a problem with people coming to P and Z. Go to the meetings. You will not see people putting in too small of a driveway. You'll see people putting in too big of a driveway and they have to tell them, no more than 40%.
I still want to see that third parking space put in there. If by adding it in the other way, it saves the village money on re-advertising, I'm fine with that.
Do you agree with that, Gage? Of the 2 parking spots and a visitor spot?
Right.
I know, but
Okay, but if
it's talking about adding that,
for the more than 2 bedrooms, that we would have to add a third space. But that would at least give a third space there. For houses with 3, is it 3 bedrooms?
Or
4 bedrooms or more, yeah.
I'm sorry, sir, if you can talk to in the mic.
I honestly, I didn't comment at this when I spoke earlier, but, even the last time when you guys removed this last time, I did not realize that you were actually taking out the visitor parking spot on top of that. So a 2, 3-bedroom house will have 2 spots for the residents and a visitor to park.
A minimum of 2.
A minimum of 2.
Make sure we always say minimum. It's not
But
2.
that's all
It's a
that's
minimum of
required.
2.
So when they come in with the plan, all they're gonna ask for is a minimum. It's a requirement for
Minimum.
2, a minimum. So for visitors and residents of the house, 2 parking spaces on the property. That's all that you're asking for right now.
Minimum. Minimum. They can go up to 40% of their front yard, but it's minimum.
But all we were required, all the teeth that the P and Z would have would be, we can only force you to put in 2 parking spaces.
Minimum of 2.
So let's do this. Is there consensus to revert it back to the way the table originally read with residential parking and the visitor parking before the amendment? Because if there's consensus for that, then we don't have to continue having that discussion. We'll just go back to how it originally was. It would have to be re-advertised, but nevertheless, at least we know what direction we're going.
It's not about re-advertising or not. I mean, whatever, a couple $100, whatever, we want to get it right. For me, it's fine the way it is. It makes sense. It's responsible. It's environmentally friendly. It is not onerous on residents, and we're not having that problem. We're not having that problem. People aren't coming in trying to skimp on driveway.
Okay,
God knows.
can we make,
But with the 40% cap, do we really have an environmental problem?
No.
With driveways?
No.
This has become an echo thing instead of a common sense thing.
can we make an amendment on that motion?
I have a
Just
consent.
Remind you guys that we couldn't find another community that has such a table. So I don't know what made us, in this village to be the one place in the world that seemed to think that something like this made sense. We looked. We couldn't find another community that has such a thing. They require minimum number of parking spaces, period, end of story, and then a maximum up to some developed amount. But such a chart doesn't exist in another community that I could find. So I'm not sure why we need it when no one else seems to. Coral
Well-
Gables doesn't have it, Pinecrest doesn't have it, Miami Shores doesn't have it. Miami Shores has minimum of 2, period.
Again, we
Uh,
have
get-
boards that are recommending, this has been our rule for years. We have boards recommending we keep it, and I like to listen to the people that do the work for us.
Madam Mayor,
I
how
will-
long is this Mr. Gage, this 3 parking that we've had, it's been in our ordinance? Has it made a difference? It hasn't made a difference. So I don't see a problem why we have to take it out. in the
Well,
first place.
I mentioned that the last time there was not an issue
Right.
before. So this is, as
Doesn't
far as I'm
seem-
concerned, as far as I know, this is part of the 1991 ordinance, I think, that
Right.
created the land development code. That's as far back as I think that this table has been in our code for
Right.
20 years. Probably.
So if we have had no problems in the past, I don't think we need to change our code, just to change our code. I mean,
For one thing, we're trying to be more environmentally friendly, and we're trying not to be so onerous on people and how much money they have to spend on something. So Dan, part of what I'm looking out for is the finances of our residents and not requiring them to spend so much money when they don't want to.
But if
But you
they're
are requiring them
spending,
to
if
put
you are
in a
they're
driveway.
requirement. That's what you don't understand.
Trying to put a driveway in, but not as big. Doesn't have to be as big.
If
And
you're
covering the world with less concrete or asphalt or whatever it is it's gonna be.
Okay,
building a 5-bedroom house, you're putting money out regardless of the driveway.
Well, it's not for you to spend their money, I wouldn't think.
okay. can
What are we gonna do with
call
It
the
says, do we
question?
have a consent? That's if we have do we have a consent to put the 3 back in? That's what the attorney was asking us. If we do, then that's,
Okay, this is the second reading. We have a motion. Would you please call the roll on this motion?
no,
To
No,
keep
no.
it the way it is or to
Motion
change
is
it?
just-
The motion is the way it is. If you don't
Okay.
like it, you vote no.
Here, yeah.
Okay.
no. To amend my motion, and if it's, I thought that the motion that we're making, the motion was to have the discussion. My motion wasn't,
No,
Now
sir.
we're
Motion
gonna
is for the
vote
item.
Okay,
yes or no.
then okay,
Let's just vote. We could have voted and moved on by now.
and do I have to amend my motion?
Since
Or
it's
we have to vote it down and
controversial,
then
we
make a
will
new
vote.
motion?
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, but the maker of the motion is looking to amend his motion. So I think we need to hear that.
You want to amend your motion?
Yeah, I want to make amend my motion to put the 3-unit back into it, the minimum.
That's not.
Yeah,
Oh, what do I-
back to the charter, the way original form was. So I want
It is in the charter.
to, yes.
Okay, is there a
Uh,
second?
let-
It's not
Hold on,
in
let
the
me,
Charter, it's a chart in the.
can you repeat that again so I'm sure I get it right?
Just to rephrase it, is amending it to approve it with the chart as it originally existed in the land development regulations for the minimum off-street parking requirement.
Thank you, Madam
Before
Chair.
we vote on that, can everyone
We
please?
need a second on that.
I'll second it for discussion. If you keep it the way it is, it does not address 5-bedroom homes, 6-bedroom homes or larger that are being built in Biscayne Park right now. So if you accept this, then you are creating a code that cannot be met by some residents. There's no way to enforce it.
We know that.
So you need to understand that before you vote, anyone votes yes on this, you will have approved
We're
something.
not voting on that. We're voting on the amendment.
The amendment is to take this chart back and reinsert it. And I'm pointing out that chart is not accurate. It
And
does
it
not
could
account
be
for 5-bedroom.
4
homes.
bedrooms or larger.
That's what I'm saying, but we're voting.
right?
4 bedrooms are larger,
Or larger.
count 6
Dan
bedrooms.
just made a motion to do something, and if we vote on it, that's what's gonna happen. Done. I'm pointing out that there's an issue in here that is not, that
Can I say
doesn't.
something real quick? Judy, can you just make a friendly, an addendum to Dan's motion? to
Addendum?
Add the 4 and above.
That 4 bedrooms or larger.
Add
Yes.
An addendum to his.
I'd be happy to.
And I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Can you say that again, Ms. Commissioner Hannibal?
That it state 4 bedrooms or larger. And it goes back to the original chart. And so if somebody wants to do a 20-bedroom house, it's still got a minimum number of spaces.
That will work. I'm just.
That,
I was
yes.
Pointing out to everyone that you can't pass something that that people can't meet.
You want to read your motion? That you amended?
Let me, yeah,
Valerie, read it?
yeah,
for you?
please, just what she just said.
It would be to prove
Valerie,
the
please
or,
come to the mic.
it would be to prove the ordinance as amended. The amendment would be to revert the chart for the minimum off-street parking requirements as it existed in the land development regulations and for residential detached one family to provide that it would be for 4 bedrooms or more. Resident parking would be minimum 3 spaces.
Okay, I have to bring this to your attention again, because again, there's going to be a problem with this. Because Dan's motion, let me restate it to make sure I understand. Dan's motion is to pick up this chart and put it back in. And Judy amended it to say 4 or more bedrooms. Is that correct?
No, I'm making the motion, just
And
what.
I understood, and Judy
okay,
amended it.
To amend just what I said, but
I
to add
understand.
her
Okay, now
part
let
in
me
there.
point, let me
which is
point
4
out
or
the,
more.
the name of this item. The ordinance says eliminating minimum off-street parking requirements for visitor parking. So the title will now be wrong. So we can't pass this. You have to re-advertise it.
We will re-advertise it.
Re-advertise it?
Absolutely.
Regardless, it would have to be re-advertised.
Has to be re-advertised anyway.
No, it doesn't.
Unless it passes as it's advertised, it would have to be re-advertised.
Or if you kept the visitor parking in there, it wouldn't have to be re-advertised. It would be done tonight.
No, it's
No.
not to be.
Why? Why would it have to be re-advertised, Valerie, if you kept the visitor parking in there?
Because the title says that it's eliminating visitor parking. So the fact that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. Got that backwards.
And again, I would rather get it right and do it once than have to revisit it again and again and again.
Well, unless the amendment was to pick up the chart for that requires a number of parking based on bedrooms, but to eliminate the visitor parking.
I'm sorry, I thought the motion was to add the chart back, which
Yeah.
would include
Yes.
visitor parking.
Yes.
Everything.
Yeah.
Not,
Yes.
no deferential.
And that
to
means it has to be
parking.
re-advertised.
Yes.
Be re-advertised. But if you didn't include the visitor parking, then it wouldn't have to be re-advertised. It could be the way it is. If you picked it up, if you put the chart back in that based parking on the number of bedrooms, but did not require the additional visitor parking, then you wouldn't have to re-advertise it, and this would be done tonight.
Okay, Judy, do you want to second Dan Scenario's motion?
I will second it. Absolutely.
What?
I'll second Dan's motion.
Okay,
Shall we vote it?
that's going back to what we had originally. Valerie, is that correct?
With except for it should be 4 bedrooms or more.
Yes.
That would be the only change between
Yep.
what was originally in the land development regulations in this chart and what would be approved tonight.
Okay, you want to call the roll on that, please?
But you'd have to also unstrike the footnote down there that says if on-street parking is not permitted or is restricted on the unit street frontage, then 1 visitor parking space shall be required. You'd have to unstrike that.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
Commissioner Kennedy, would you like to make a friendly, motion to eliminate the limestone gravel? Since you're making a motion to approve this ordinance the way it is? I know you wanted yours.
I don't have a motion on the floor. Dan does and Judy does.
No, we already have a motion on that.
The commissioner can request an amendment
Yep.
to the motion, and if the maker and the second of the motion agree to the amendment, then that can move forward.
And I won't agree to it, so that's.
okay, we're going to take a vote on Dan's motion. Judy seconding it, that if it's 4 bedrooms
Or more?
Or more.
or more. Okay, can you call the roll, please?
Mayor O'Happen,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilburn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kennedy,
No.
Commissioner Samara,
Yes.
4-1.
Okay. Resolutions.
Correct.
Correct.
We're not going to tell you because we don't want to make it a competition.
Okay, resolution number 2021-64A, approving color palette for painting, staining, or otherwise colorizing concrete parking surfaces. Ed?
A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving a color palette for painting, staining, or otherwise colorizing concrete parking surfaces in accordance with ordinance number 2021-13, authorizing the village manager to do all things necessary to effectuate this resolution, providing for an effective date.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve that?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mayor, I'm sorry, the comment from the planning board chair, which was what they recommended, which I believe we staff may have misinterpreted, was that any request to paint a driveway go in front of the planning board and not have pre-approved colors that would not come before them. So I just want to make that clear that that was his recommendation. I'm not sure the commission wanted to entertain that.
The way the ordinance was drafted, the resolution language mirrors the ordinance. So the ordinance that you guys just adopted said that only those that deviate from the color palette would require planning board approval.
Well,
That's why
the ordinance didn't pass, though. It's got to come back.
We're not changing that.
We're changing that anything needs to be approved through P and Z, any color.
Are you suggesting we don't do this?
No.
I'm just pointing out what the chairman had commented earlier during public comment.
Okay, who made,
H, can you?
you want to talk again, Gage? Get me in trouble?
Just, you know, if that is the direction of the way that Valerie's stating, the way that the code is written, that it has to be these colors, then I would recommend that we look at it again, because there are, you know, there are 50 different shades of gray. There are
And
50 different
50 shades of terracotta.
of charcoal there, you know. So, you know, if it's going to be that exacting, that's why we tried to base it on what we did for the roof, because, you know, we allow a gray roof. So when somebody comes in, it might be a light gray or a dark gray, but it has the gray. That was the intent of the way we looked at it and the way we ordered. But if it's going to be, these are the exact colors, then I would suggest that we look at it again. Or change the ordinance that to reflect the way the board has suggested.
We want to table this resolution?
No, we can take some action and decide if we're going to toss it back to them or what we want to do. Let me say something here. So here's my issue with it. First of all, I think all the permits should go through planning and zoning. So I'm 100% agreement on that. I think they should have to go through, whether it's substantially similar to whatever color. I think they need to go get approved. But here's my problem. And again, I'm going to be the broken record. You've heard me say things like this so many times. If we leave something, I don't like there to be subjectivity in code, because then it leaves it open for interpretation and leaves it up to the board. And you know, you can't just sort of say, well, they'll take care of it. They'll make sure it's the color that the color that makes sense or that the village likes. We don't know who the 5 members of that board will be 6 months from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, when this code is still being used. So I don't like there to be subjectivity in code, because then it dumps it on them. We're relying on them making a good subjective choice for the village, and residents to say, well, why wasn't mine approved? You know, for example, someone could come in with a shade of orange that to me looks like day glow orange, and they'll say that's terracotta. Well, okay, one man's terracotta is another man's, road cone. So it just concerns me because you can't find a color that says terracotta. Actually, I Googled terracotta and you'd be surprised how many colors come up when you Google terracotta. So while terracotta can be used to describe a certain color of sort of clay pot, terracotta really doesn't mean that. And there's lots and lots, it's a material and there's lots of colors. So I don't like this subjectivity in the code. I don't want that to be dumped on the board for them to have to deal with that. I'd rather it be much more specific. I'll give you an example. In the village, there's a house that has a blue roof. And when I asked, how did the blue roof get approved? I was told that the name of the color is something gray. Well, I don't care what the name of the color is. It's a blue roof. It looks like a Culver's, hamburger joint. So it's not a gray roof. It may have the word gray in its name. It's a blue roof. So this subjectivity is what concerns me. And I don't want the board to be burdened with that. And I don't want to be worrying about what happens when Gage is no longer, we all love Gage running this board and we're very confident in him and his board members. And when he's not here, then what? Then it's subjective to somebody else. So I don't like that subjectivity being left in code. I would prefer that there be a very specific palette of color, that P and Z sit down and put together a palette for us, because they know Gage wants, he and his board members discussed it, and they want white to be one of them. Well, show us the whites that you would accept. And if it's 20 whites, it's 20 whites. But give us a range of, show them all the whites, show us the grays, put together an actual palette and say within grays, here are all the things that could somehow be acceptable to us. And they can make sure there's not some weird blue gray that they wouldn't want on someone's concrete driveway. So I think I would be happier if there was a little more work put into this and an actual palette were put together. And it could be an extensive palette. Take these 5 ranges of color, the terracotta, the gray, the white, I forget what the rest of them are, and flesh them out for us and say, and here's they are, and there's the palette, and not have the board be tasked with doing that and figuring it out. And someone there arguing the fact that that's not blue, that's gray, and then we're dealing with the board having to handle residents when they could just say, here are 300 colors on a palette that include these 5 categories of color. Pick one. If it's on the palette, you're approved. They could still go to the board and ask for a variance, I suppose. But, I think we can give people a lot of leeway on this. So that's my opinion. I never like subjectivity in code. I don't like the responsibility that it dumps on the board, and I worry about the future.
Okay, we got a big agenda. What is, we have a motion on the floor. We have a motion on the floor approving the color palette based on an ordinance. You want to call the roll, please, since it's controversial?
Madam,
Okay.
I'm sorry, do we have a second? I don't know that our clerk has who made the second?
I would make a motion saying to approve it, but that all colors should be subject to approval by P and Z. I do hope that they put together a palette that gives people guidance that's more specific in at least 20 colors of gray, white, terracotta, and then variances, you can deal with as they go along, but at least people will have some guidance on looking for things.
Judy, is
I-
this your motion?
I'll second that.
I'm confused because you're making a motion to approve an item, but then you just described something that is very different than what the item says, because the item says white, gray, charcoal, brown, beige, and terracotta, but then you said you want the board to go come up with at least 20 colors for it, and you want them to have authority on this, which it doesn't say in here at all. So it sounds.
That's right.
Okay.
Judy, are you making the motion the way it is now?
No, I'm changing it.
You want to amend the motion?
I'm amending it to say that all colors should be subject to the review.
The what?
It sounds to me like you're suggesting something that's very different here. So you're making a motion to approve this, but making 2 rather significant changes. I just want to make sure I understand what your motion is.
I think a color palette should be more specific, but I also think that the planning and zoning board should be able to review all of them.
Okay, and maybe what we should do is ask planning and zoning, maybe we should table this and ask that a change be made, that Valerie make the change that one, planning and zoning has to approve it, and ask P and Z to flesh out a palette that, that does what you just described.
Do you want to amend your motion to table it?
I have no problem tabling it if the commission wishes to table it and revisit it next.
No, let's not. Can't, with the motion she made, wouldn't that settle what we?
She can withdraw the motion and we can table this.
In all honesty, we can change the motion now because it's only a first reading. It needs to be more settled for the second reading. Is that not the way it goes, Valerie?
The resolution, it doesn't come back for second reading.
This is it.
This is it.
This is,
If this is it and we can't change it, then I
think at one point, so the table it, that is an option. Table the resolution in court. Give direction to the planning board.
You'll have the palette built into it, and you'll make the change that says all
All-
colors have to be
all
approved by.
colors. Fine, I have no problem. with
Then
Happy with
table
that.
it. I think we should,
everybody in favor of tabling? Resolution 2021-64A, please say aye.
Aye.
If you mean, and also, and ask Valerie to make that change and ask P and Z to come, to develop a palette for
So
us.
they'll bring a palette in. next for
If
the-
that's what we're saying, then yes, I'll vote for that.
Yeah, right. Okay. All in favor of tabling it? Say
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. It's tabled. Resolution 2021-65. I will remind everybody, it is 9:30. We have a very big calendar. And 11 o'clock, it will be over. Commission meeting dates for 2022.
Didn't we move the other stuff up?
I'm sorry?
Didn't we vote in the beginning to move the other thing up?
Yes.
That's after the resolutions.
Okay, no problem.
I'll make a motion
I
that we
read it?
approve the
Can I read it
2022
first?
meeting schedule.
Can
Oh, you have to read it. I'm
It's
sorry.
got to read it first.
Go ahead, Ed.
A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, establishing the regular commission meeting schedule for 2022, providing for an effective date.
I personally am not
Anybody made a
available.
Motion?
I didn't. She can go ahead.
I'm not available on August 9th.
We need a second on that.
I didn't make the motion. I'll make a motion that
made
we
the
approve the 22 calendar as presented to us.
Right.
Madam Mayor, question? If,
After the seconding of them, I'll second it. Okay, discussion?
if that's the only date that can be changed, if we change it, it's like getting rid of it. We have to redo the resolution. We just
No.
change that one.
No, we can change it. Judy, when are you
I-
available that month?
Since Commissioner, I've always wanted commissioners to always be able to attend all meetings. And if it's possible, if that's the only date that has, August 9th, let's see if we can change it.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the 2nd, but they moved it back a week because of the police night out.
Right? So what happens if what other date?
Can't you do?
We,
Can't do the 9th. May I amend my motion, please? I'll amend my motion to accept the calendar as scheduled, as presented to us with the change of the August meeting to August 16th, Tuesday.
I'm not available February 1st.
Okay, I think we should do is let's go over this and see what dates people can.
Judy, is there any other date you're not available? You're good otherwise?
I should be able to do the others, even if I have to do them remotely.
Do them by Zoom. You're at February 1st. Jenny, do you have any problems with the schedule?
No.
Would
I
you be
don't.
available February 8th if we move it back a week?
Dan, do you have any problem with the
No,
dates? as
no,
presented?
if we
Okay,
can
then I'm gonna
move
amend
those
my
two
motion to accept the calendar as presented, changing the February date to February 8th and the August meeting to August 16th. Anybody want to second that? Mario, do you have a problem with that?
no, sir.
Oh.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. It's passed.
So February is February. Let me change my calendar right now. So February 1 becomes February 8. Got it.
Okay, 12C, resolution number 2021-66, scanning, indexing, imaging, and media conversation services, conversion services, I'm sorry. Ed?
A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving an agreement between the Village of Biscayne Park and Access Information Management Corporation, DBA, Access for Record Scanning, Indexing, Imaging, and Media Conversion Services, utilizing the pricing terms and conditions of the City of Hollywood Agreement in an amount not to exceed $116,000. Authorizing the village manager to do all things necessary to effectuate this resolution, providing for an effective date.
Okay, I'd like a motion.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-66, scan and index, imaging and media conversation
I'll
service.
second it.
Kennedy? Discussion on that?
Madam Mayor, would you like me to do a brief introduction of the item? Essentially, Madam Mayor and Vice Mayor and Commissioners, for several years, one of the issues that the village has is moving everything into a digital format. We have at least 3 rooms filled with boxes of papers that date back way before I was ever even a thought. And so the idea, as we've budgeted in the building fund, is to have a company that comes in and starts digitalizing these old records into a format that we can have. We are piggybacking off of the contract for the City of Hollywood. We had multiple companies come in. Access Agreement was the one that was able to give us closer to what we were looking for. Essentially, they came in, they looked at all 3 rooms. They said, we anticipate that it's going to be X amount of images that we're going to scan using the unit price for the City of Hollywood. We came up with an overall budget. We split that up over 3 years. We have $50,000 budgeted in the building fund for this year. Year 2 and 3 will depend on the budget and what we have. I don't anticipate having any issues as we're still receiving quite a bit of work when it comes to and revenue from the building department. This would allow us to digitize the records. We will get these organized per address and then in a PDF format that will then go into an FTP and a external hard drive, which then our IT department will essentially put that on our servers so that we have more than one copy. The hard copies can be sent to a place where that does our record storage, which is called Iron Mountain. And with the guidance from the state of statute, the village clerk, there are timeframes for how long we keep before we're able to dispose of physical copies. So we'll be following what the Florida statute is, but again, we have that storage offsite and it's not in the village. So this is moving a major project forward, as well as reclaiming several square footage within village facilities. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
I think this is a fabulous thing. So Mario, so thank you for moving forward on this so quickly after we approved it in the budget. This is like, we're so far behind on this. This is fabulous. I just want to make sure we're clear that we're paying per scan. So that contract, what we're approving may not actually all be spent. You may have to come back and ask us for more. So we're not locked in. That number is not a hard number for everything that has to be scanned. This was a guesstimate based on their cursory view of the number of boxes that we have sitting around.
Not to exceed 100.
Right, but it may not finish the job. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on that, Mario, right? That we're paying by the scan and they're not guaranteeing to get the complete job done for that amount of money. We're just only budgeting, we're only approving you to spend this much now, but it's not guaranteeing to get the job done, correct?
From the best of our abilities, that's the estimate where they felt would accomplish the job. However, if it's going to exceed that, then we would have to come back to the commission for approval.
Okay, just want to make sure everyone's clear on that, because it's not a price to get the
Everybody's
job done.
clear.
So make sure everybody out there in TV land
You
is
all-
clear as
yeah.
well. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I support this.
Okay, all in favor of 2021-66, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Passed.
Thank you.
12D, Resolution 2021-67, Collective Bargaining Agreement. Ed?
A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, approving a collective bargaining agreement between the Village of Biscayne Park and International Union Painters and Allied Trades, IUPAT. Attached hereto is Exhibit A, authorizing the mayor and the village manager to execute said agreement, authorizing the village manager and village attorney to do all things necessary to effectuate this resolution, providing for an effective date, providing for an effective date.
It's twice there. It's double that we're having an effective date.
Can't get good
I'd
help.
like a motion on that, please.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2021-67, a collective bargaining agreement.
I'll
Is there
second.
a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Madam Mayor.
What?
Yeah, we need a brief overview of, in the cover memo, I broke down all the significant changes that were in the various articles. This is a agreement that the union, which covers our public works employees, non-managerial employees, they presented as to the requests that they wanted for their agreement. The village met, with them, we then reviewed. We had some changes that we wanted to make and clarifications that we wanted on there. They also agreed to that. And so what's in front of you is the ratified, in which the union members have all approved. It passed unanimously in their vote earlier. Well, we're in December, so last month. If you like, I can break down every single article, but I think you all have it. And I know that we've each talked about it individually, each one. So it's up to the commission if you have any questions.
Okay.
I do have some questions. So I read this, and it looks like you did a really good job putting this together, Mario and the attorneys. But I have one section that concerns me a little bit. It's Article 10, benefits, where it talks about employee training. So what it says is, if we require an employee to receive specific training, they're asking to be trained to do something. If we require it, that we will reimburse employees. That's my first issue, is that when you say we'll reimburse employees, that implies that they will have paid for that out of pocket, and then we're going to reimburse them. So I'm not clear why we're asking an employee who's required to undergo training, why they would be required to pay for it themselves and then get reimbursed and have to wait up to 90 days for that money. So that's my first issue, is why is it out of pocket for them, or implying that it's out of pocket for them? My other issue is that it says we will only reimburse employees that have been with us for 18 months or longer. So now we have an employee who's been here less than 18 months, and we're requiring them to receive specific training. We're requiring it, and we're not going to reimburse them for it. So the way it's written, unless I'm not understanding this, someone explain it to me. An employee who has not been here for 18 months, we could say, you're required to go to this training and you have to pay for it yourself because you haven't worked here for 18 months. That's my only issue with this, the way it's written. I'm concerned about I'm concerned about employees having to be out of pocket for training that we require anyway, and why people that have been here less than 18 months would not be reimbursed.
Vice Mayor, this does not preclude the village from paying for any specific training. However, the union wanted to make sure that for whatever reason, if the employee needs to do a training and for whatever circumstances came out where they paid upfront with their money, that they would get reimbursed. And we agreed that in the past agreements, it was under 100%. We agreed with the union that the village would reimburse 100% of that, but it does not preclude, right? But it does not preclude the village. And from an administrative standpoint, I would encourage our director or any, if he receives any request for training, or he would require one of the members to do a training, that the village pay for it upfront, similar to what we did for code enforcement when they went to go get their certification training that they needed to do. So I understand your concern.
Yeah, I'm concerned for our employees because the way it's written, the village could require them to pay for it upfront and then get reimbursed and wait 90 days. And someone who was here less than 18 months, it doesn't say that they'll get reimbursed at all.
But that's what their union negotiated.
That's what
So,
they wanted.
That was their
Their
request.
union negotiated. So the only change that they requested was from 75% to 100%.
100%.
Okay, they didn't request anything
Okay.
that you are currently
Well,
advocating.
then if their union is okay with it, then I guess we are as well. But it just bothers me because I'm looking at an employee, they're not the highest paid people in the world, and then they could be out of pocket for something.
But their bargaining unit
If
bargained.
if their union's okay with it, then
And they passed it
that's
unanimously.
that was my only concern when I read this.
It doesn't preclude the village from paying upfront costs on it, and it doesn't preclude the village from extending benefits to people who have less than 18 months if we feel it's necessary for their job. It's just requiring the village to pay for it if they've been with us for 18 months. So it doesn't say we can't. Am I correct, Mario?
Correct, ma'am.
Thanks, Val.
Okay, that was my only question. That's-
Can we take a vote?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? It passes. Okay,
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, if you can, just for clarification, in my notes, the next item, the first item for discussion is the discussion of the short-term vacation rentals, as that is the second item for discussions, because we moved the swale to the very bottom.
Can we now agree to reverse the order of anything?
Wait,
Because I'd like
sale
to,
is going on 15.
that's going down.
What?
Yeah, I'd like to get Mario's salary conversation done next.
We're discussing,
Can we move up 13C, the manager's thing up, and then put the swale? I mean,
13A as number 15. Let's change.
Right. That's correct. Right. So the next one would have been short-term vacation rental.
Okay, the next one is 13B, short-term rental.
Would anyone agree to do Mario's salary done first? I'd like to get that done and out of the way so we don't.
Yes, I agree. I want to get that. That should be shorter to do anyway. So let's get that out of the way. And then we can do the
With that,
rental.
We have three that say yes to that. Do you want to do that? Jenny?
Yes. Is that okay with you? Yes.
Before we lose the manager in embarrassments.
Motion?
I make a motion. Yeah, I make a motion to move 13C above 13B and then put 13A back down to 13C. Correct, Commissioner Kennedy? That was originally.
Yeah, do we have to be that formal? Can we just agree to do the conversation? Let's do it. Do we have to be that formal? No. Looking at Valerie.
Second to that? All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's passed. Okay. We are going to.
No, it did not pass.
Move
We
it.
just
We didn't have
just
the- we
agreed
didn't
to
discuss
move
the
it
item.
up. We're just moving the item up. Because originally the way it was Commissioner, Vice Mayor. No,
No, we did not.
Vice
We didn't
Mayor
discuss it now.
Kennedy
All we
had,
Jenny, we just agreed to talk about it now. So let's talk about it now. That's all that vote was.
yes, that's all it was.
Who wants to talk?
No, Commissioner Kennedy, since it was Vice.
Well, I asked, when we got our agenda, this item was not on the agenda, and I emailed Mario and Shantae and reminded them that in September, we agreed that we would put this on the December agenda. So Mario, you get a demerit for being uncomfortable putting this on the agenda, because I know you didn't want it on there, but I made sure it was on there. So we promised Mario we would have this conversation. We need to have this conversation. So as a reminder, we did not approve a salary increase. We budgeted for a salary increase. It's not required, but we did not approve a salary increase for him in September. What we did at his 6-month evaluation we as a gesture of good faith for the work he was doing for the village, we offered to pay half of his family's health insurance policy at a rate of $500 a month, which is annualizes at $6,000 a year. We did that through the end of September, when we would have completed his first annual evaluation, which by his contract is required to take place before October 1st of every year. At that evaluation, we then agreed, after much conversation, to extend that benefit for the term of his employment. So we did then, in essence, give Mario a $6,000 pre-tax raise by the village funding half of his family insurance policy at $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year, and it's pre-tax, so there's a bit more benefit than the $6,000 mark. What we need to discuss tonight is a salary increase, if we want to give him a salary increase. So that's what's on the table tonight. So did I get that synopsis
Yes,
correct?
yeah, because Commissioner Gonzalez that was one of his concerns, along with my concern, is that I didn't want to give a raise until the contract was.
So Mario is now, December 1st was his 1-year anniversary.
Right.
He has now completed 1 year in the village. Yay, we didn't chase him off.
Not as bad as
So
it was
glad you
before.
put up with us, Mario. And for all those people listening who don't know our history, there was a lot of things that weren't done before, and we're working very hard to get things done. And Mario has been an amazing asset to this village, and I want to thank him for being there for us. And I want to thank him for his expertise. I understand nothing's perfect and things still need to keep improving, and we'll work that way. But compared to where we were at a year ago, the whole world of Biscayne Park has changed for the better. And I think we need to keep moving forward. And I think we need to reward this man for all the headaches we give him. And I'm all for it.
So just to be, that wasn't a motion, but I'll second what Judy just said. And I think we're all very pleased based on the evaluation we did in September. Just so everyone's clear, the $6,000 pre-tax benefit that we made permanent for him equates to a 6.3% compensation increase on top of his salary. What we have budgeted is $100,000. If we were to give him the complete $5,000 as a salary increase, the total increase in his first year will be a 12% increase after 1 year of employment. So we've already given him 6.3% raise, quote, raise, in the form of health with his health insurance. If we have budgeted up to $5,000 we could give him. If we gave him the full $5,000, that would be a total of a 12% raise at the end of his first year of employment. So before we have the conversation about numbers, I just want everyone to be clear on that.
And I think it was Commissioner Gonzalez and yeah, I think it was Commissioner Gonzalez that brought it up, that this was in reference to this city manager, not any future city managers. If I'm understanding, if I remember carefully what you said, Commissioner Gonzalez.
To his contract.
Yeah, to his contract. Okay, to his contract. I can support this.
To say, you want to discuss this?
No, I'm all in on giving him the $5,000. I think it's well deserved, and
Is there any other discussion?
No. So whoever made the motion, let's take a vote on it.
Okay, all in favor?
We would
we
need
didn't-
clarification who made
Hold
the
on,
motion.
We need clarification. Hold on. Hold on, we need clarification. We need,
Not for discussion, you always discuss it after the motion.
excuse me, according to the city manager, we needed clarification. No, hold on. City manager said that we need a clarification, so you said a clarification.
Again, for the record, the clerk would need to know who made the motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve the $5,000 increase to $100,000.
Happy to second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. But don't expect
All
next year.
opposed? Congratulations, I think.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. It is truly an honor to work for you and for the residents of the village as we continue to make improvements every day.
Okay, 13B, discussion short-term vacation rentals, Airbnb.
Madam Mayor, if I may introduce quickly, Commissioner Samaria several months ago approached me with concerns with regards to vacation rentals in the village. And this was during session last year. And I had respectfully requested that he hold off any conversation because at the time, it appeared that the Senate was going to approve a bill that would have completely eliminated and preempted anything that a city can do, and the state was going to regulate all short-term vacation rentals. And so he did. Once session passed, we got together and he asked me, he shared some of his concerns, and I won't steal his thunder. I'll let him get into that before I discuss. So we've tried to get to this topic for a while. I think it is important. There is no guarantee that the state won't preempt us, but there's no guarantee that it won't die again on the floor like it did last time. So I think it's a good time to have this conversation and to move forward with the discussion. And I'll let Commissioner Samaria kind of take over his introduction.
Concerns is that we don't have an ordinance that has to do with, I call it A and B, but it's the manager has short-term vacation. And I think we need to have an ordinance in the books. We have an ordinance that says noise and all of that, but we don't actually have an ordinance on how these people are to be run. I think we need to have to figure out how they are required to register with the village, because it is a business. But one thing I want to make perfectly clear is that I do not want to punish residents that rent out their room, not put them into the same thing as these individuals. And I think the way we can get these people is their fines. We can make the first, and I'm not good at explaining stuff, and I rather have the city manager take on from this point. But just basically, I think that one of the biggest concerns has been noise, parking, etc. And I know we have it in our ordinance, but it really hasn't been enforced. And the city manager thought I was blaming the present code. I wasn't. We just haven't been enforcing it. And so I'd like to have him clarify much better. Not that we don't waste time with me talking.
Thank you, Commissioner Samaria. Essentially, the village cannot preempt short-term vacation rentals from occurring within the village. However, we could put several regulations around short-term vacation rentals, and that is common practice throughout the state and even the county. And so we cannot create a new rule for noise just for vacation rentals. We cannot create a new parking rule just for vacation rentals. That our rules for the entire village will remain the same. However, we can require that short-term vacation rentals apply for a license or a permit. We can set what those fees for those permits are and what would be required. In North Bay Village, as the chief of staff for the village manager over there, this was one area in which the village had tremendous issues. They have several properties that are on the water. So those properties are multi-million-dollar homes that quickly became party houses. And because in a short-term vacation rental, you have people coming in basically every weekend or potentially every day, you now have essentially a hotel operating in a residential section. And that is one of the biggest issues that people have with short-term vacation rentals. You have noise issues, you have random strangers constantly coming out, you can no longer enjoy your private property. The community was going, now what they had on the books had a permitting structure around it, which required an inspection of the home. But the fees were very minimal, $250 and $500 for second violations, basically. Some of those violations were for operating without a license, for advertising without a license, on top of any noise or code issues, additional having too many people within there. So what North Bay Village ended up doing is they increased the fine for those violations. They increased the fee for the license. I believe their license, initial license is $800 and the renewal is $500. It requires an inspection of the property. It requires that the lease agreement with whoever's renting has the code and the ordinance for noise, for parking, for trash. It requires that the property owner, or sometimes people would rent the property for a long term and then turn it into an Airbnb. It would, if that's the case, it requires that the property owner have a notarized letter saying, I understand this will be an Airbnb and I agree to it, that we're renting that out. It would require that they keep a log of the contact information for every single person who rented that. Because if someone who's at an Airbnb commits a crime, we might not know who that person is and we can't follow up. Now, one of the scary things that happened at North Bay Village was a resident and a renter got into an argument. The renter ends up allegedly stating, well, I leave tomorrow and you will never know where I live, but I know where you live. And so those are some things that could, be very scary for someone to now have to live with, that you have people who are coming in and could put. So they created a way to kind of track, because now, well, great, well, we have your contact information and this person's filing a police report and we'll work with the other agency to follow up. So there's different rules that they were able to put in place. Now, in North Bay Village, these homes would rent out for over $10,000 a weekend. And during holiday seasons, it would be over $15,000. So a $250 fine or a $500 fine meant absolutely nothing. It was like our $25 administrative fee. It was just pocket change and the cost of doing business. However, the new ordinance change when those fines increase, the commission actually increased even above staff recommendation, that the first fine, I believe, was $1,000. The second fine was $2,000, and third fines and above were $5,000. You got to be careful when you set those fines, because Airbnb as a company did sue Miami Beach because their fines were excessive. But Miami Beach essentially were fining people $25,000 for every rental they had. That's, the state said, no, you can't do that. However, there has been no challenge to the levels that North Bay Village has put in. That would be something that we should discuss, what those levels would be, and even with legal, to make sure that as a village, we would be comfortable to be able to enforce that. But the key here is, well, Mario, if they're renting it and they get $1,000 fine and they're renting it for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, again, that's not really going to hurt, because over the course of the year, they could be making $70,000 to $100,000 a year on it. One of the ways that in North Bay Village, when I put it together, that I worked it out was, after the third violation, your fourth violation had a 30-day license suspension that you cannot operate. The fifth violation would be a 6-month suspension, and above, and 6 and above would be a 12-month violation for each violation. So if you have 7, that's a 2-year. If you have 8, that's a 3-year violation. Suspension of the license, so they couldn't operate under that time. Correct, legally, with a $5,000 fine for each one of those. But then you also, at that point, you would be putting a lien on the property. You would be suing the property owner as a nuisance, because now we're not talking about a fine that's $200. We're talking about potentially a $20,000 fine, right, that you would be collecting. So the fine itself might not be that impactful, but you could lose $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 in 1 month. That hits the pocket. In 6 months, that can easily be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and in a year that can be $100,000. All of a sudden, that's like, okay, wait a minute. So, although there will always be certain issues with the properties, the fact that some of these houses that were party houses almost eliminated, at least for the time being, because all of a sudden that property owner said, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know, this was one scenario, I didn't know that the person I gave a 3-year lease to was using it for Airbnb. And so he forcefully ended the lease and moved and pushed that person out, and came and talked to the village, settled the fines with the village, and then worked it out so that in his next lease, he put that they're not allowed to do that. Now, that's for properties that are basically the entire property is in Airbnb. As Commissioner Samaria mentioned in his recap, there are scenarios where a person who has a 3-bedroom house is an empty nester, or they live by themselves. They say, you know what? I'm going to close this door and I'm going to rent that one room a few times a month so that I can supplement my income. North Bay Village does not treat that as a short-term vacation rental that needs an $800 license. They treat that as a one-off. That's okay. Now, if someone has a detached building in the back and they're renting that out, then yes, you need the lease. So I think we got to be very careful when we're having this discussion to be able to say, is this someone who's just trying to supplement their income with renting one room, a couple times a year or a few times a year, however, and do we want to do that? Because the person still lives on the property. And I think that was the key determining feature, is that person still lives on the property, where the other res is essentially, in my words, it's a hotel. It's a transient hotel. But it's
Airbnb does allow you to rent a home. It doesn't have to be a separate room closed off as a separate apartment. You can go sleep on someone's couch through Airbnb.
Correct. So that's why they didn't want to make the code so punishable that it would stop that from happening, but they wanted to be able to regulate where the entire property is used as an Airbnb, which lowered the quality of life for the residents.
Just curious how that would happen, right? So if I'm the owner of the house, right? What do? You knock on the door and you say, is the owner here? And then somebody says, yeah, I'm the owner. And then what do you ask for ID? Because technically, right?
In which scenario, sir?
In
I'm not
any
following.
scenario, in the scenario where it's a hotel, right?
Okay.
To say, so what do? You knock on the door and say, hey, hi, this is an Airbnb. Okay. Is the owner here? Yeah, I'm the owner. What do? Ask for ID?
No. So if there's a property that's completely rented out, and we have an issue, we would approach and say, hey, there's noise complaints. But as part of the licensing and permitting, we would have the contact information for the property owner that we would be able to reach 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we would tell them. We actually had earlier in the year, we had a scenario, I think it was President's Day weekend. There was a scenario where there's an Airbnb property on 121st, and they were throwing a massive party. Police, we got a noise complaint. Police responded. They started talking to the people there, telling you got to turn off the music. In the meantime, one of the officers knew the neighbor who had the owner's contact information. They reached out. The owner was like, absolutely not. He came down at 11 o'clock at night, kicked everybody off the property, even the people who were renting, shut it completely down. So we can, as part of the permit application and the licensing, we can require that they provide the village with a representative that can respond to any scenario at any time, 7 days a week. And so we would have that direct contact information.
It would be the property owner, correct?
Or if sometimes well, yes and no, because sometimes a business can own a property. So as long as it's the property representative and they're attesting that they are the person responsible within that licensing, then we have that contact information.
All right, you seem to be an Airbnb expert, so let me ask you a couple of quick questions that I just.
I'll do my best.
No. Do we currently have a list of all the
No.
short-term, rentals?
No, sir. No, it's not required. And so we don't know how many.
So in theory, some of these homes that are currently in this program, short-term rentals, could be homesteaded, right? And we're losing out on tax dollars because they're homesteaded. And when they shouldn't be homesteaded because the person technically doesn't live in the property.
If the person doesn't live in the park, again, there are scenarios where they could be.
But there are probably a bunch of scenarios where they're not.
Possibly, yes.
We don't know
Correct.
whether or not those homes are homesteaded, and we may be losing out on tax revenue, correct?
Correct.
So that's another big issue that
Mhm.
that needs to be addressed. do we currently require them to have occupational licenses because they're a business inside the village? We do not?
We, if someone contacts the village and says, hey, I'm running on an Airbnb, then we would tell them you need a landlord permit. We should be telling them you need an occupational. But again, because there's nothing in our books that specifically says you need to have these, they just don't report it.
It was my understanding that if you had a home business
Mhm.
in the village, you were required to have an occupational license. Is that not the case any longer, or is that
You should be, yes,
technically?
correct. But
It's a business tax receipt, a BTR.
Yeah, BTR. Yes, so you're supposed to have a BTR. But what you're saying is that most of these locations do not even have a BTR because we don't,
Correct.
because they haven't said anything to us and they're just running a business.
right, and some of the ways that we check, is there a business being run out of that property, is we would look at Sunshine, Florida Sunshine, where we would see all those, and we would search for Biscayne Park. And then even sometimes even on Google Map, it'll say the name of the business. However, this for short-term vacation rentals, it's just a property. So you could have a corporation that's out of Coral Gables that has 20 properties, and that's just listed as a property. It's not an individual house that has their own business doing it. So we don't have, we're losing money on that as well.
BTR issues as well.
Yeah.
Wait, just two more questions. Certificates of insurance. Obviously, these locations should in theory have insurance, right?
Yes, they should.
Is it a possibility that, you know, if and when we go down this road, that we ask them to include the village as additionally insured?
I would have to defer that to legal, what's allowed. Usually that I've seen, the homeowner's insurance has a liability clause or something that someone might have. I don't know that, and I haven't heard, maybe you all have, of a municipality requiring additional or naming us as additionally insured.
No, there's no legal basis for that.
Nobody asked for anything. You just got a license in Monroe County,
Mhm.
the keys. And if they must have had someone going through all the Airbnb thing. And their requirement is no 30-day minimum,
30-day minimum of rental.
the rental.
Yeah,
And I got a $3,000 fine.
nice.
The only comment I want to make is primarily the issues that we see with these are noise issues. And there was a note left on my door a couple of days ago by a resident who, they did sign it, but I couldn't read who it came from. And she was complaining about a party at a rental place on 119th Street. And again, for all of our residents who could be listening or watch this later, we have a noise ordinance, and any noise after 11 p.m. should be reported to the police. We do have a noise ordinance. It's been in place for years and years and years, and I believe it's correct. It's 11 p.m., Mario?
Yes, 11 to 7 a.m.
11 p.m. to 7 a.m., we have a noise ordinance. So if something's going on, please contact the police and let them get involved.
Correct. And
And
part of,
notifying us a week later, it's over and done. We can't stop it.
correct. And that's one of the things that Commissioner Samaria wanted to address, to make sure, as we're looking into, you know, what could we do for short-term vacation rentals? I did ask police, hey, how many complaints did we get so far this year? And they counted up, there were 54 noise complaints. That's not necessary to say 54 parties that were complained on, because a noise complaint could be a dog barking. It could be, you know, this person's car is too loud or anything, but there were 54 within the 365 days, give or take, this past year. If police isn't notified, then we can't do anything. So again, I appreciate your statement. Yes, if there is a complaint, please call so that we can address it appropriately.
And maybe we can put that on our new website about the noise ordinance, as we're talking about the garbage and everything else. Maybe that's something that we could address so that A, the residents know, and B, the neighbors know.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I say a couple of
They
things?
did nothing on the church when I used to complain on the parties and the amplifiers and where you couldn't sit in my backyard and have any quiet. It was so noisy and they never did anything.
Okay, I'd like to,
What?
okay. I want to say a couple of things here. So, and then I have a suggestion for us for a way to move forward. This is, if anyone's worrying and wondering if this is a real concern, it is. That house on 117th, the giant house, is an Airbnb, and I get complaints about it from the people who live on 117th Street on basically every time it's rented out. I share Art's concern about the homesteads. I looked one up, and sure enough, it had 2 homesteads on it, and it's an Airbnb that the person does not live in. So it's a real thing. We are being shorted on tax revenue, and I think maybe as a separate issue, we should have someone check on the ones that we know to be Airbnbs. Someone could, it's easy to pull up. You pull it up on Miami-Dade and you can put it in the address and you can see if they have homesteads or not. Some of them have multiples. Can we, I'd be interested to know if we could require verification of that there are no homesteads that would preclude it being a short-term rental, or that would be violation of the homesteads, or that would be something we would require, or that we have a measure in place to report it when we are made aware of it, when we are aware of it. But I think we need to police that.
We become aware that someone's not living in a property that we think is homesteaded, that should be turned over
to the
to
county.
the Dade County Property Appraiser.
Okay, reoccupancy inspections. I'd like to know how often we're allowed to, how often we could require them beyond the annual inspection. That might be something we want to look at. A lot of my things we already discussed.
So in,
Is there a sex offender verification of any kind? Because some of these short-term rentals, people are there for quite a long time. They're not all just weekend party houses or a week. Some people rent, my brother rents his place up in the mountains and he rents it out for like sometimes 6-8 months. People will rent it because it's in a ski area, you know? So I don't know if that's something we should look at as well. Mario, was the North Bay Village ordinance passed?
yes, sir.
It was passed, okay. So here's what I suggest we may do, since we're just having a kind of an open, freewheeling discussion here, and it sounds like we all want something to be done. Mario, what if we asked you to come back to us with a list, a Valerie approved list, what we could call it? So you could talk to Valerie and come back with us with a list of every single thing that we could legally require, whether you think it's something we would, all agree on or not, and just come back with a complete list that Valerie says, all of these things you could legally do. And then we look at that list and we have a conversation about it. And then we could start deciding, include this, don't do this, put that in. But I think this has been a good conversation, but it's kind of all over the place. If we had a list to look at that Valerie said, yes, all of these things you could do, that would be, to me, a really nice next step in this conversation. Otherwise, I don't know how exactly we move forward with this.
I think probably the easiest way to do it is for us to prepare a draft ordinance.
You want to go straight to a draft ordinance? Okay, I was trying to not have you do all of that work for nothing, because
Plenty of
we have a
models.
tendency to go through and tear those things apart when they're presented like that.
Yeah, there's plenty of models. Miami-Dade
Hundreds
County.
of these across the state
Yeah.
of Florida. We're just
Okay.
going to copy somebody else's.
But we want to make
One
sure it
that-
includes everything
We
possible.
represented Flagler County. We had a big problem with this and we defended theirs. So theirs is a model
Okay,
for the state of Florida.
and it kind of includes everything possible.
And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to be able to fine people $5,000. I'm just going to tell you that right.
Okay, so you could present us an ordinance that would have everything, including the kitchen sink included in it, that we could go through and say yes to this, no to that.
Best practice.
Okay. And I'd be very happy with that. If you could bring that back to us, is that something reasonable for January, or is that a February thing? January?
That could be ready for January.
I'd be very happy with that. What do you guys say?
I think every area now has the Airbnb.
Okay, so do we need a vote on
Miami-Dade
that?
is silent on this, right?
No, ma'am, they have an ordinance. It's part of your backup. They have an ordinance that addresses from, as one of the concerns, the sexual offenders and predators, to parking, to noise, to responsible parties, to things that should be on the lease. All of those things are included. It's like 6 pages long.
Do we need a vote on that, or is that just
No,
a
sir.
consensus that we can do?
No, that's just a
I
discussion. We
think
can come back.
We did a good job on that as a first run out.
Okay.
Okay.
The
New
ne-
business.
the Land Development Code, Sector C.
Land Development Code Sector C, zoning, minimum lot sizes.
Thank you, Mayor. Planning and zoning recently had a discussion and they made a recommendation with regards to Sector C. And I just want to share a map that I have up here so that you all can see what Sector C looks like. So just give me one quick second. Okay. And so I don't know if either Gage, I know you all wrote the letter with the intent. Would you like to kind of give that introduction and to discuss the concern, and then the commission can take up on that? Mayor, would that be okay?
Yes.
Sector C is the green.
Sector
Good evening,
C.
everyone. As you can see, we have the village is actually broken up into 4 sectors. We have A, which is the Griffin Road area. There's B, which is pretty much the area we're in. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
You're talking the microphone, right?
B, which is the zone that we're in now, and then Zone C, which really runs up against the Florida East Coast tracks, all the way down to Miami Shores Country Club. So as I presented last time, and as I stated in the memo from the Planning and Zoning Board, in Sector C we have duplexes, 2-family and 1-family residences. So as we're discussing the McMansion issue, one of the things that we have not discussed is density issue, as far as that zone and the fact that that zone, the way it currently is zoned, can be subdivided so to make larger lots smaller, which would allow more development, more buildings. Duplexes can be also torn down and made into mega duplexes. I mean, we always talk about McMansions, but we can talk about McMansion duplexes. So there's all types of.
Gage, I'm sorry, I missed the second part of what you said.
Oh, I just said, that single family homes can be torn down to make into McMansions, but so can duplexes be torn down to make McMansions. And as we are just discussing, we now have investors looking at the park to possibly, just rent out duplexes for Airbnbs. And so is mine. And so is Commissioner Kennedy, again, or Vice Mayor Kennedy's. So we also have in that zone a number of single family homes, which can conceivably be turned into duplexes. So the question really is do we want to look at our density that we currently have, and do we want to try and cap our density so that it does not become denser? Really that's the discussion. We're not trying to eliminate duplexes. We're not trying to say, what we're trying to say is, okay, right now we're happy the way it is. Let's maybe create an ordinance or do something with the zoning that could not encourage additional density, basically. And also, we want to be very conscious of the fact that people do have their property rights, and they, we're not trying to take away people's, right to have a duplex or anything like that. So that's why this discussion came up, because we are dealing with McMansions right now. So we feel that this should be also discussed and see what the commission says. Do we want to, change the square footage, the minimum square footage of lots, which would kind of help ease the ability for people to subdivide? Do we want to maybe consider going forward only allowing single family residences instead of future new development duplexes? So it's really, as it's stated in the memo, it's a discussion for you to have, and it's something that we feel that needs to be addressed, because it could conceivably, with Biscayne Park in the eyes of developers, could be something that we're not considering at this time. So,
H, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
What would be the difference between a duplex, say 2-2, and building a 5-bedroom or 6-bedroom home, as far as density is concerned?
2 families.
I mean, yeah, but
You get 2 families, you got 4 cars,
but you can technically have the same thing with a 6-bedroom home. You can have the
In-
five, 6 people living there and 5 cars.
I lived in
That space would be much better with a large home.
I lived in Coconut Grove and I saw these properties subdivided and the traffic. I mean, that was one of the reasons I got out of the Grove. I saw all of the little houses get torn down and made into duplexes and triplexes and multifamily dwellings. And I hate going there now. I lived there 10 years. I moved from there to here to get away from the density. I brought it up at topics we discussed before, and I think it's a wonderful thing that we need to address because I don't want to see what happened to the Grove turn to us.
So Commissioner Gonzalez, to answer your question, they're really, I mean, what you're saying, you could have a 4-bedroom, single-family home, as well as you could have a 2 4-bedroom duplex. You know, that's part of the McMansion discussion too. You know, the question is that, you know, looking at our large lots, can somebody conceivably build 2 4-bedroom duplexes together? And then that's 8 cars, and that's, you know, plus 2 guests, that's 10 cars. You know, so it could conceivably, there could be, this could explode exponentially. So.
And there's 2 septic tanks and there could be 2 pools and there could be a whole lot more lot coverage and there are lots of things. So Gage and Valerie, maybe you want to jump in here. I'm not sure who I should officially ask the question, but just so we're all clear on this, 2 of the biggest things, the 2 of the biggest differences between, I hate these things. 2 of the biggest differences between B and C is that the lot size in B is minimum lot size is 8,500 square feet, and for C it's 6,000 square feet, correct?
Yes.
And for sector B, single family homes only, and for sector C, duplexes are allowed. Those are the 2 big differences, right?
Yeah, 1 and 2 family residents.
Gotcha.
Yes, duplexes.
So it seems to me that could it be as simple as this? And Valerie, you definitely want to hear this because, go ahead.
I was going to recommend that the village manager pull up table A.
There it is.
There, so
Okay.
it helps to visualize
Yeah.
different residential sectors, what the differences are.
So could it be as easy, could the solution be as easy as this? And maybe this is a question for Valerie. And I don't know how you legally go about this, but for all intents and purposes, eliminate sector C and absorb sector C into sector B. So we have sector A and sector B. Everything that is C becomes B as in boy. And we grandfather in the duplexes that are there and the lot sizes that are in place. So if someone has, because if we change them all to B, then we would have a minimum lot size and people will be out of compliance with that, but we could grandfather them in. So their minimum lot size, their non-compliant lot size is allowed. And their duplexes are allowed. So that would preclude anyone from building a new duplex because we wouldn't allow it in sector B. And it would preclude them from splitting the lot into smaller ones because they wouldn't meet the minimum lot size anymore. Could it be that simple?
Yeah, can I ask a question too? Yeah, I mean, I think there's the logic is good. The question is I think, you know, that Valerie can address would be, what is the landmines of down zoning of a residential area? As far as, I think there was an act or there was a lawsuit, I forget the exact name of it, that has been referenced before
The Burt Harris Act.
Okay, so the question is if we decide to tread down this way, what is the landmines that we have to be careful of? Because if I want to play devil's advocate, I could say I have a house in zone C and my intent was to put another residence on it, and you're taking away my right to do that. So
Mine too.
you know, it's not, I don't think it's as clear cut as doing that. So I think, you know, that's something for our attorneys to discuss and discuss with you. But it's not that easy.
That's exactly right. There is the Burt Harris Act, which provides that people have property. A municipality or a local government regulates that to take away or to minimize or diminish those rights, they have a potential claim for that loss. So it's not that, but you have to understand the risk that it entails because the village would be assuming some risk if it decides to go that route. So I don't know, you know, what that delta is monetarily, what that would look like. I'm not sure, you know, what the potential is, you know, having this conversation in the abstract, but there is that risk.
Is the risk minimized if we somehow take it to a, I don't know exactly the word, take it to some kind of approval of the residents, so the residents are involved in that decision being made? Does that minimize the risk at all? Because an individual homeowner could still say, I don't care if everybody else in the village agreed, I bought my house with the intent to tear it down and put a two-story duplex up. Okay, so in other words, you're saying we could do something as simple as I said, turn C into B, but we would assume some risk. We would have to know that we would be open to some kind of a lawsuit if somebody chose to.
So the question really was, the reason we brought up the topic was to have this conversation is if, our attorneys to tell us, is this something that's foolish that we couldn't even consider in the first place? Or is there a path forward to do this? Is there a way of doing this?
There is, but again, it's a risk analysis.
There is, we have to know the risk is there.
Risk analysis. So
And there's not an analysis really to make because we have no idea what anyone's intent might be. It's not like we have a list of, these are the 18 people who we know would like to do this, and what's it worth if those 18 people came after us, because we don't know. And that could change tomorrow.
To me, the risk is not worth it.
I think it's definitely worth it.
I think it's worth it too.
I definitely think it's worth it. And I think the risk is relatively minimal because I think at least for all the properties that people have been living in for years, they can't say if they've lived there for 10 years, their intent was to turn it into something else because they should already done it.
Well, we also have duplexes that are turning into single-family homes. So we have the opposite actually happening. So the risk is every time that happens, there's one less risk, available because someone's already done what we kind of would like them to do.
But one of the other things that we clarified in our letter was also, not impacting current property owners. I don't know if that says something that is, this legislation can be written that, current property owners have the right to develop their property the way that they currently have. It's just that going forward, possibly with new property owners or I don't know. This is all discussion to let our.
So I think that would significantly mitigate the risk. And I just want to make sure that we're making a distinction. It's not just folks who already have duplexes being grandfathered in. He's saying anybody who's a property owner in that sector would have the right to still develop a duplex, even if you change the zoning code.
Current property owners.
Current
Current owners.
enactment of
There's language like that in our current land development code because we dealt with it with the Van Reamer variance that came to us. There was current language that said properties purchased before such and such a date.
That was the lot size the reduction of the lot size.
Yeah, but
In the 19, with the variance for 500 Northeast 119th for,
So if I'm understanding, this wouldn't stop if somebody has a house now, single family home, and they decided they wanted to turn it into a duplex, they can still do it.
But if they sell it,
Yeah, if they sell it.
then the new owner can't.
so it'd be something like that was modeled on that 1991 code where the lot size, because we could have, the same argument can be made when they increased the frontage, that we were taking away the rights of people that had the property prior to that.
Right. It's like the one on 119th Street where she could do whatever she wanted to. Okay.
Suppose they have a family home and then they decided to make it a duplex to sell it. Are you saying that they can't sell it?
The current owner would be, based on what we're discussing here, the current owner could do whatever they want to. If they sold it to someone, that person then would be precluded because they, in essence, would have bought a property, should have known what the rules were when they bought it. So that would not really, okay, so let's pretend we did that. Let's just say for argument's sake, we agreed that we would eliminate C and B absorb C. We grandfathered in the lot sizes and the duplexes that are there, and the current owners could still do whatever they want to do. This really would benefit us as properties turn over years and years and years from now. There's no immediate benefit. Someone gauge your entire block, everyone could tear down their house and put a duplex up. It wouldn't stop that from happening, but as things turn over, that's one less opportunity for it happening in the future. So the gain becomes much more minimal, but it is a long-term strategy, and at least we're moving in the right direction as best we can. So I'm fine with it. I would agree with that.
I think what it does is it keeps the developers from coming in and doing things that we don't necessarily want them to do for the future. And I.
Well,
think so.
That's what the letter
It,
was about.
it helps,
We
but
are
it
in the
doesn't.
We are in the eyes of developers
Yeah.
right now.
It helps, but it doesn't completely minimize it because they go to current property owners and say, we can do this for you too. So it works both ways. They don't necessarily go buy it or bring a buyer to the equation. Sometimes they go to the current owner and say, you can do this, I'll do it with you. So it doesn't completely correct anything, but it's certainly a big, huge step in the right direction. And long-term, it only gets better and better, never worse.
Yes.
At worst, it stays the way it is. At best, it gets better every time a property turns over.
So can we ask the attorneys to address this for us for the future?
Valerie, how would you like the next step on that one to be? Do you want it to be a draft ordinance that you come to us with?
For February, since January's plate's full?
Yeah, we don't think January necessarily is feasible. Give us a chance, now that we have some general direction, to look at the comprehensive plan and make sure that we're not creating any inconsistencies between the zoning code and the comp plan. And then also, if you're going to be changing the zoning districts, you will need a new zoning map. So those are some other considerations, but we will be working on it. We have the direction, we'll work on it.
Okay,
But
so
is there-
based on what we told you, we don't need to vote on anything. You kind of understand what it is we're trying to do and you'll bring something to us.
Right. So
Perfect.
it's either to consolidate,
To
you know,
me.
C with B, but
It's,
Grandfathers.
eliminating.
it's a
right,
2022.
minimum lot size of
project.
8,500 square feet.
Yeah, but I also think that, this is such a, like Judy said, this is such a drastic proposal for our village. We shouldn't just rush it through. We should talk about it and have our attorneys work on
Yeah,
it and
she'll bring
and
something to
look
us
at
and
other
we'll look at it.
cases and stuff like that and study it. And, and then gradually bring this in because, right now we might be looking at like these two items for eliminating zone C, but there might actually be something that we're not thinking about that the reason zone C is there. And if we eliminate it, it might open up another can of worms. So it's just a patience, open up discussion.
Well,
That's the
She'll
point
bring
of
it, she'll
tonight.
bring something to us and we'll look at it.
Gage, thank you very much for all your hard work and for bringing
Hey,
these
Gage, that was a
things to
big
us.
get from you. Thank you, you and your board.
Yes.
That's a big one that
On
you
board,
brought to
too,
us.
so.
Why we love boards bringing stuff to us because none of us thought of that one.
Yeah, we'll see on Saturday how how the rest of it goes. Hopefully well.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Can we
Nope.
do the vice mayor thing really quickly? We'll get that done.
Yeah, because we're not going to end up.
We're not gonna get the swales done. Okay, can I make a motion that we move my item regarding the vice mayoral selection up next?
That's already, yeah, the 13A is item 15. So the vice mayor would be the next item.
What's the matter?
It's already the next item.
It's already there.
It's already good.
Because we made that 15, it bumps it up. Okay, I get it. I gets it. Is that mine? Do I need to jump in here?
I can summarize it, Vice Mayor, and you can jump in if I'm miscategorizing anything. Our charter illustrates that for Vice Mayor, every 6 months, a new commissioner will serve as Vice Mayor. And it requires that all the commissioners be the Vice Mayor within that 2-year window. Traditionally, from the moment I walked in and from before Roseanne has indicated to me, and probably even before that, it goes alphabetically from after the election. So in December, Commissioner Gonzalez served as Vice Mayor through May. Then June through now December, it was Commissioner Hamelberg. Now it's Vice Mayor Kennedy through May, and in June it will be Commissioner Samaria through the November commission. However, the charter also says that it should have been codified in an ordinance. However, when Vice Mayor Kennedy requested our clerk and our attorney to see if it ever had passed, we could not find anything. So the Vice Mayor Kennedy wanted to actually codify that process. Is that correct, sir? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, so that's it. It's just that our charter requires it to be done by an ordinance and apparently the ordinance was never done. It was done in a traditional way for a long time, but it was never buttoned up. So this is a detail in our charter that's not addressed. And all I'm saying is, let's just formalize this the way it's supposed to be done per the charter. The only other, and the way we do it, I think is fine. I mean, we could do it any way we want to. I suppose we're going to write an ordinance. We're going to vote on an ordinance. But the only little sticky thing in here is, and this actually happened when Ginny and I were first elected, is that if a commissioner leaves for any reason and there's a special election, we have to determine how the new commissioner gets slotted in alphabetically, because it could set up a situation where Dan's next up, for example, and his last name starts with an S. If we had a special election in January and someone whose last name started with B as in boy, they would jump on the list ahead of Dan, and Dan would not serve as the vice mayor. So I think the only thing that I see that might be tweaked a little bit is that if there's ever a special election, the newly elected commissioner or commissioners go at the end of the line alphabetical by last name, so no one gets missed in the rotation.
We could definitely work that out with legal. I would presume that the same as with term limits, that someone who comes in for that special election or whatever, that only serves for that term. If that term already had the vice mayor designation, then they wouldn't jump again to it. But that might just be some semantics that we work out on the language to make sure that we're still in compliance. So we can bring something back to the commission for it, if that's the consensus.
Turned in.
We can bring it back. We can work out what the language and everything would be and then bring it back to the
No,
commission.
I'm sorry. Ed said something. I didn't hear what he said.
That we can work on it together offline.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. Okay, so basically, we're just going to formalize the way it should be done, what we're already doing, and fix that thing about a special election. Okay.
Okay. So we have consensus on that. For Madam Mayor, if I may, for item 15 or 13A, whoever's following us, which is the discussion of the swale and right away. One idea that I've spoken with all of you on for this item was last month we went through all the backup information and some of the history of what residents have done over the years. One idea that we had that everybody seemed to like was, let's just go down the line, and so that everybody can list what their priority, what their wish list, things that they want to see or not see within the swale. We can just list that out and then come back on the next discussion and try to help consolidate. For the sake of time, because I don't know that we'll get through it within the next 20 minutes, may I recommend, if the commission is willing to accept, that I can have that conversation again with each of the commissioners, so that I can create that list for you all and then put that on the agenda, and then we can just go step by step down that list at the next meeting, as opposed to holding off or only having a partial conversation within the next 20 minutes.
Well, we kind of did do that. So there is a chart that we created the first time we had the conversation. I'm not saying, I'm not saying I disagree with what you're saying, but just so you know, we did that, and it was a rudimentary version already created, but you may want to just have that handy when you have this conversation with each of us.
Yeah, I mean, if the commission is willing to accept that, I think the intent is to go a little bit deeper than just that and say, hey, these are XYZ, what I want to see on there, what I don't want to see on there. They may still match up with that list or they may not, but at least we can kind of come back and instead of cutting this conversation off early, we can have that full conversation at the next meeting.
Okay, we're gonna put this on the next meeting?
If that's the consensus that the commission is willing to accept my recommendation.
Can you get that done by the next meeting? I mean, we have holidays coming up. You're out for a minute.
Probably February would be more.
Right.
more likely.
Let's look.
Let's-
for February.
January, I can't imagine.
Yeah, we do have
That's
some.
a little overly.
That's a great,
You to
yeah.
pull off.
I appreciate that. Thank you for looking out. Yeah, we can definitely have that for the February commission meeting.
So the goal is for you to bring that back for February after you meet with each of us.
Correct.
Okay, are there any announcements?
We made the announcements earlier with regards to the town halls. We also have the Winter Fest on December 18th, which is a Saturday. We'll have a parade. I hope that the commission can join us. We'll have vehicles so that we can parade Santa around the park, and we'll end at the Recreation Center for pictures. We'll also have bounce houses. Great Waste is also sponsoring a competition, a decoration competition there as well. So those details will be coming out very shortly as well. Sorry. And I just lost my train of thought. Oh, and we also have the holiday decoration properties that can be nominated now through the 19th. I sent out another email blast earlier today. So please reach out to your neighbors if they want to nominate any of their properties. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion for an
Well, can
adjournment.
we ask for somebody to be put on the next agenda? Because have never done that before, I don't think, but this is the point at which we do that, right? Request something for the next agenda. Mario,
Correct.
I would like to have a conversation, if you wouldn't mind bringing this to us, and I think we could do this in January, a conversation about board meetings, their times, their locations, how they're live streamed. I would like to have a conversation about that. I want to make sure that our board meetings are as accessible to the public and to the commissioners as they can be, and how they function and how people can participate live and remotely. I think there's a conversation there that should be had.
Not a problem, sir. We can.
Does anyone else
definitely to the
agree with that topic?
Usually the.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for an adjournment
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
and second. Okay, I'd like to wish everybody happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, and Merry Christmas. And hopefully we'll see you at the Winter Festival.
We have to vote to it. We didn't vote on the adjourn.
What'd you say?
We didn't vote to adjourn the meeting, but okay.
We didn't do what?
We didn't vote to adjourn the meeting.
Oh. All in favor, say aye.